Hello and welcome to episode 254 of the FReality Podcast. It's been a blistering pace on the internet for PSVR2 owners this week. I look forward to sharing our thoughts and views today, perhaps duking out a few contrasting opinions too, and maybe even learning something, as the brain is back in the studio. Up for today's VR weather report, both in the scarlet skies, or down in the scroungy seas, we've got gobbling good news for you gregarious gamers. What do Chromecast and Ready at Dawn have in common? You'll find out. We also send Rowdy to the International Space Station to fix the antenna on this radio broadcast vessel a little bit later on. I had time toying with the new PSVR2 app and have been happily gorging on the PSVR subreddit, which is currently inundated in a downpour of PC-related posts. And Gamescom is coming this month, so we'll take a gander at what to expect. Finally, I hear Jose's been playing around with Little Debbie. That sounds so wrong. Yes, and she's been cascading rain down from the heavens. But no one wants to stop a devout gamer from his life's work, so we're going to hear about releases a bit later from our very own tropical storm, Jose. It's time for crew highlights. Rowdy was away, so let's give him first spot. Rowdy, welcome back.
Hi. Yeah, I've been doing well. I'm back on the road. Yeah, I understand, Adam. Like it can be stressful. I think you did a great job, though. I'm back on the road. It's always funny when that happens because I have I have a couple of friends. I have like a server that I use for doing videos and totally legally, of course. We share videos on there, and people can log into that server and watch totally legal. I want to stress that legal videos. It's not pirated whatsoever. All of the new movies come out of there, and whenever I go on a longer trip and I have to put everything in storage, I get a ton of messages from people why is the server down? And I always get these messages, and it's funny because I'm like, you guys ain't paying me. You're getting free Netflix, and you're still complaining. I don't need to give you service updates. No, I'm joking. But yeah, no, indeed, I'm back on the road. I'm traveling around a little bit longer this time. Don't really know yet where I'm going exactly, but yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of traveling while I'm working, so that's gonna be nice. I got a full mobile setup. If it doesn't go well, blame it on that, and then Adam, of course, will take over fully from now on, doing all of the audio, all of the video. No, I think we're good. I have actually two highlights I wanted to bring up. The first one is that I had my first meeting this week. It's actually funny because you might be listening to the podcast, but I mentioned it during that meeting as well. It was my first meeting with an Apple persona. I work at a studio that is embracing technology very, very much. So it's more likely that you run into these kind of people that have these kind of devices. And it was awesome. I immediately saw, because a few of the people were in the meeting were like, what is, you look strange today. But I immediately tell that it was an Apple persona, and he was indeed he was on an Apple VR headset doing a meeting there. He was an iOS developer, so he is very much into that ecosystem, which makes it make more sense to run into someone who actually has that. But yeah, I thought it was awesome. It worked really well. It felt very natural as well, because it was the first minute. It was a little bit people were a little bit confused about what happened, what is going on.
You okay, buddy?
But then afterwards, it was it was the normalest thing. We did have to switch to a different meeting platform afterwards because there were some errors that we were running into, and that platform didn't support the persona, I think, so he didn't manage to use it eventually. But yeah, it was awesome to see that kind of technology. I also went to the Apple Center a couple of days ago. I didn't try it out. I did see people scheduling up and trying it out. I was actually surprised by how small it actually looks like. It's a fairly condensed, fairly small headset, kind of fits in the palm of your hand a little bit. So yeah, it's a very cool device. It looks very futuristic, good size, yeah. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight for me to see that kind of tech, and then I managed to talk a little bit about the podcast. Got a new fan in there as well, so that's awesome. And then
well, if they're watching,
yeah,
welcome.
if he's wearing, you better be.
I
and then
wanted to react just on your first highlight there, Rowdy,
right.
because the personas, like, I've got this feeling that they're going to replace the, I'll call it like the stock image that most professionals create. They go to a photo gallery or there's some professional photographer, their hair's blowing in the wind or whatever. They're behind a sea of clouds and they take their shot and they put it on LinkedIn, they put it on their global directory or whatever. And it's like this thing follows around and you meet them on a video call and you're like, you look 10 years older and worn and like, and they've held on to this image. And I feel like the persona is kind of like a new version of that because it's my question is, are people going to shower anymore? Are they just going to show up in their personas in their headset, all grungy and like now it's going to be once a year they update their persona instead of that
Yeah,
profile
well,
picture.
the
So,
funny thing is, if you use Zoom or you use Google Meet, all of those already kind of use personas because they do these kind of like face enhancements and like better lighting and like so that you actually look better in the meetings. I think that's even by standard that is like turned on that there's like this like
Hmm.
little enhance kind of button that you have where you kind of look a little bit smoother, a little bit fresher. Like I always look better in my meetings than I do
Beautifying.
in real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I should have a little steam iron, like, animated that just goes and just like goes across your face
yeah.
and all the wrinkles go away.
Yeah,
Be fun.
yeah, that's kind of what they do, right? I don't even know if Discord has it. Like, I mean, I'm still pretty young.
I know
don't
Skype
really
has it,
have any
Zoom's
We all
got it.
do.
I don't think the Discord, it must be a paid for feature if Discord's
right,
got it.
so we
I don't
definitely don't have
have it. No.
Mhm.
This is us.
And then the second highlight is, and I don't know if people, I mean, do people here have an Audible subscription? Like maybe people in chat, like people in chat probably do, but do you guys have an Audible subscription? You do,
I
Jose?
do.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
So
I'm too lazy to read, so it's perfect.
I mean, I love reading. Like I read a lot, and I think
Is
I
it
started.
is it endless, Roddy? I don't know. Does it work like a like an Xbox
So
games
yeah,
subscription where you like
I'll
get any
explain it.
books you
So
want?
yeah, so it's you do get a fairly large number of books, like kind of like Netflix, like it's like you have a large number of books that you can just like download on your device, and as long as you keep the subscription, you have those books. But you also get a credit per month. So for like newer books that come out, you can use that credit to buy that book, and that book will always be yours basically. Even if you, I believe, even if you cancel the subscription, you will still keep that book because you bought it with a credit that you paid for. So you every month you can get a book, and you can also get audiobooks that are just on there as based like basically like Netflix, like it's based of their sometimes you have these books that are available, sometimes there are these books, and that's kind of like a rotating kind of so I like reading a lot. I do read a lot, but in the evenings when I'm lying in bed or whatever and I can't sleep, I like to put an audiobook on. I started doing that roughly like 2 months ago, and I've only recently. I mean, I started reading. I don't know if people know the book. It's called Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Amazing book. Like I did the audio version of it, but I then discovered that there is something on Audible that is called graphic audio, which I didn't know before. I
Graphic
didn't really
audio.
graphic audio they call it, and it's amazing. Like I did like some sections of it, and it's so good. It's basically they call it a movie in your head. So you
Oh, that's not
it
what I was
works.
thinking.
Always the wrong thoughts. But anyway, it's
Always.
basically like like you lay in a like if like I do it. I lay in a dark room, close your eyes, and then you have like it starts with like some music background. There's like background noises. You have a full cast that is basically doing the different voices in the book as well. You have a narrator that goes through the entire book and the story. The one from Red Rising specifically, if people want to get like a good experience and they're into like the fantasy science fiction genre a little bit, definitely check that out because I think it's a really high standard that they go for. Because I don't think all of them are really good, but this one in particular is really well done, and it was recommended to me by a
graphic
friend.
audio.
It's called graphic audio. Yeah. Graphic
Okay.
audio book, and it's like a dramatized version. So when there's fights going on, you hear like like the slinging of the blades, or you hear like the lashing of the whip, or like whatever. There's like audio going in the background, and when a speech is delivered, it's done with like more regal tone, and you have music in the background to set the scenes and stuff like that. It is so good, and because like the thing that I often find frustrating about these kind of movies is that a 3 hour movie is very long, you know, like you have 3 hours, but if it's like Lord of the Rings, you kind of don't want it to end, you know, like you want to get like the full thing. And they could make the Lord of the Rings like an 8 hour movie easily because there's so much more content. But with these audiobooks, they're like 16 hours. You have just 16 hours of this kind of stuff just going on. And it's so awesome. I mean, you don't do it in one sitting, of course, but for me, it's awesome to like, you know, just like an hour before I go to bed, I just like listen to that stuff and like, hey, it's so good. You know, it just, you know, brings me down entirely. It brings me in the zone of like, you know, this fantasy world. It's so good. Honestly, like if you have an Audible subscription and you haven't tried it out, Red Rising is a great book to spend the credit on. But if you want and you say like, oh, you know, I don't really care about the graphic audio, you can also just, it's currently basically for free. If you have an Audible subscription, you can just get Red Rising as well, which is done with a lovely, I think a Northern English or like a Scottish accent or an Irish. I don't know the accents. It's definitely not the regular English that I'm used to. It's a little bit getting used to it, but he does it brilliantly as well. So yeah, I mean, check it out.
I really like that. So that's a cool recommendation because sometimes like audio only can be its own landscape and definitely is another way to get immersed.
Yeah.
But I'd never heard of graphic audio before. That's definitely a new thing for me. Like I'd heard of before where you have a single person reading the book from start to finish. And sometimes that person, especially specific characters that they decide to voice, just are terrible and it kind of ruins the experience. So this is like a whole nother adventure. That's pretty neat. What does something like that cost though? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, you can find it, I think, for free on YouTube as well. I think that people probably have like the dramatized versions on YouTube. So you can get, there's a section from it. But I think the Audible subscription is about like $15 per month, something like that, that you pay. So it's very similar to Netflix, I would say. I did manage to bring my mom into it as well. She doesn't have Audible, but it's different in Belgium because it's called Storytel there. And she's loving it as well. She's a big Agatha Christie fan. She loves reading these like murder mysteries, and she has it now for I think 2 months. And she already like destroyed like 10 books or something.
Wow.
It's awesome. I think it's a great. I prefer it over Netflix. I barely watch Netflix actually.
Yeah, no, that's nice. That's very nice. The other thing is that it can be hands free. You know, like you can be washing the dishes and listen to an audiobook. You can't really do that with a paperback. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Long drive or commute.
A lot of people do that in their car. Yeah.
Can you imagine how long Lord of the Rings audio book would be with all of the songs that they have in it? Like there's just so many songs. And reading them is just kind of like I skip over it because I'm like, I don't want to read a song. Like that's weird. But I wonder how that would be in like what you were talking about.
I know that the Brandon Sanderson books, but these are huge books, and I usually read them. I don't listen to them because I didn't have it before. But they're about like I checked it. There were like I think like 25 hours or something like that of of reading. So yeah, it's a good way to get through some books for sure.
Man, I don't want to cut into Rowdy's, but I'm listening to him talk about graphic audio and sound like one of us. Like I feel like me and Rowdy are like twin flames separated. But I just wanted to add, Rowdy, since you're into graphic audio, I'm gonna put you on like a really awesome homework. There's something called 8D audio, which is what they do is they split these graphic audios into 8 directional sounds. So now you get the full 360 soundscape. It is awesome. Entrancing. If you're into video game lore, there's also and I'll send you a name, but there's a Halo side story that they did the same thing, and you can hear like the gun clicking, you can hear the gore splat, and then I wanted to mention Lord of the Rings, and I have this on my phone because I was actually ironically it's called Soundscape by Phil Dragash, but it's a Lord of the Rings. Yeah, it's a soundscape, which is a graphic audio version of the Lord of the Rings books, and they do sing the songs. So that's what they do. Like you actually hear the songs being sang.
The song's good.
Oh yeah, they these are hardcore audio nerds, right? They're trying to bring out emotion. There's like a whole entire, and I bet there's some haptics people listening to this, and they're like screaming on the tops of their lungs. But there's something also called psytrance, which is graphic audio. They're music based, but they're meant to invoke certain feelings in you. And It's really good. I highly recommend.
Yeah, you got it.
Well, look at that. Brother's back at it. So why don't we just continue then with you, Jose? It sounds good.
Oh,
You're up next.
boy.
Did you do your homework?
I did quite a bit of homework. Finally got done. Shout out to Pico. The official announcement went up this week about the partnership I kind of mentioned in the podcast a little bit early on. But they were holding off the gun until we finished the project with them, and they finally were like, "Yep, go ahead, make it public." But yeah, it's pretty awesome. Finished that. But I wanted to check in and scream from the top of the mountains about Linux. I know that we talk a little bit about it. I know Rowdy's a avid Linux user, so I wanted to talk to him about, and the listeners too, about Bazite Linux, which is a new distribution on Linux. Is based on Fedora KDE. Red Hat, Fedora, well-known Linux distributions. Yep. But what makes Bazite so special and beautiful is that Bazite is a community effort to replicate or create a similar, as close-like experience to the Steam Deck OS, but take it to the next level. So you get a similar Steam Deck experience, you get the desktop mode, but they also are adding all of the latest and greatest features on a curated manner to make it as simple as possible for Linux noobs. So
you can deploy this on a Steam Deck, or it's specifically for like a desktop?
ROG Ally works on PCs as long as it has an Intel or AMD based. They recommend an AMD-based graphics card, so if you have an AMD GPU, then you're ready to go. But Linux has existed for quite a while, but there's a lot of hurdles and steps for people to get this working fundamentally well. Bazite really, they did not cut corners. It really, I truly compare this to like the Windows XP or the Windows 7 of Linux. It is plug and play. I'm actually using it right now. They went, as I mentioned, they went above and beyond. So they installed this, we mentioned it before, it's called Waydroid, which is a protocol that it pretty much fuses Linux and Android. So Android applications, you can just install them as a normal app, double click, installs on Linux. So now any application that you don't have access to because you're on Linux, there's a 99% chance that there is an Android app. So that's for Outlook apps, remote desktop apps, all of those are immediately work, but they also have the Proton emulator, which is what allows you to run Windows apps on Linux. So you pretty much have a fully free open source alternative, non-spyware driven operating system that can do everything that Windows can do and more, because it's running now all of the protocols that Steam Deck has. So you get all those updates to run these games really well. You get the compatibility layer. It is free, as I keep mentioning, free. It's we're here. ALVR, Steam VR works out of the box, which is the reason I'm bringing this up. That was one of the biggest issues with me personally with getting into Linux, was getting virtual reality working really well. It just works out the box.
So dumb it down for me, because I know we've started. For anyone who's for the console people, I'm going to talk down to console people for a second, who are like, I've got a PlayStation. I clicked on the thumbnail. I came here 20 minutes. You've taken me through immersive audio. You've taken me through kernels and distributions of Linux. What, in a simplest term, then, does this allow someone to do? Because you got me interested, but so you're installing this as an operating system, and then ALVR allows you to use it with the VR headset as well?
Yeah, to use a VR desktop wirelessly. So if Steam Link does the VR wirelessly, ALVR is an open source alternative to Steam Link. Yep. And allows you to run your games wirelessly. But the most important reason I'm bringing this up is doing more with less. That's the value of Linux. I actually saw a video by ETA Prime on YouTube a few days ago where he actually purchased a sub $150 slim desktop from eBay with no graphics card. He spent an additional $100, bought a decent used graphics card. He had a $700 gaming machine that can run AAA games. Because the power of Linux is that it's optimizing all of this hardware and pushing out the most it can do. They call it, running as bare bones to the metal, which means that's pretty much there's no intermediary software running between it, which is something that Windows does a lot. That can add a lot of lag, especially for virtual reality. Also, the cost of getting a really good high-end optimized Windows OS, having it a free or as close to free as possible alternative hasn't existed for Windows in almost like 10, 15 years almost. I think the last time I've been excited about, reusing or repurposing computer parts, as I mentioned, 10, 15 years ago. So the fact that people can now bring the most out of their older hardware, Windows 11 is creating restrictions for your hardware. So if you have like a 10-year-old desktop, you can't get the latest Windows update. So there's a huge market being born in real time. And as you guys, we mentioned the Steam Deck, handhelds are getting smaller and thinner. So we're about to enter, like as I mentioned, a super cheap, powerful computing era. And there's going to be just a device for everything and everyone. So I'm just super excited about seeing those potentials on an operating system.
I got the website up here as well. We had a question in chat as well where the question was asked, would this work with VR desktop?
Yeah. I was immediately thinking
that's
that
a good question. I believe no. I don't think VR desktop has an official Linux port, but ALVR works.
Like
ALVR,
right?
It's to be quite honest, the difference between ALVR and virtual desktop is Guy puts in a lot of polish into the platform, right? It's a paid app, so there's you don't expect any bugs with ALVR. It's being updated daily. So there's always bugs, but I would say the ALVR team tends to be a little bit ahead of the curve than VR desktop. It all depends on what you want, but VR desktop,
Also,
but it's been heavily used, for example, with Apple Vision Pro as well. ALVR is being used. I mean, the friends of mine who have it and want to use it for gaming purposes, ALVR is their go-to. If I'm not mistaken, Guy has his virtual desktop software working on 2 operating systems. I believe it's Windows and Mac OS.
Yeah.
And that's it, as far as I know.
Yeah. But that's the power of Linux. What's up? Sorry.
If it works on Mac OS, then I would assume it wouldn't be that hard to get it.
Yeah, that's, and also the cool thing about Linux is, as I mentioned, it's running as close to the metal as possible. So if you really want, which is what I'm actually doing right now, is you can run a Windows container inside Linux and then just run Windows inside Linux, and you can just use VR desktop that way.
It's
just being able to do it. It's incredible, and the fact that it's so easy now. Like somebody can actually, I feel comfortable recommending this because you'll download it, install on the USB. As long as you follow the directions, you're not going to mess up. This works in the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck, both of those hardware, specifically those models. It runs comparatively much better than the stock OS. Because there's certain limitations are removed, the restrictions, the updating. You can set up the Steam Deck to act more of a desktop replacement more than a handheld. So it boots up to the desktop environment, and it's awesome. It's just seeing the little glimpses, as I keep mentioning. Everybody keeps talking about, when VR goes mainstream, what does it look like? And this is exactly what it looks like. Multiple little devices, all decentralized that work in tandem. And you just pick and choose what you want to use at those moments. And it's just, we're almost there.
I used to be such a parts guy, was a system builder back in my teens. Loved knowing everything about everything for all the little minutia and detail. And this stage of my life, that sounds so daunting to me. Like trying to figure out what distribution I need and then work out because the second I hit a problem, I know it's going to cost me 40 hours in just debugging. So, but it's still exciting to
Linux,
me. So
Linux has changed a lot in that regard, though, because you can, for example, what they're showing here with GNOME and with KDE, which are they're basically just like overlays. You can easily switch between more a Mac look, which is the GNOME look, and more like a Windows look, which is like more the KDE look. So it's not like if you go with like a standard distribution, like for example Ubuntu, it isn't as much more as just like downloading it and installing it. It's not.
Yeah, and
it's not
I
like
did the Ubuntu lab before, and
Linux, these kind of things.
Yeah, right. So a lot of the complexities come out of it. The user interface, kind of like with interfacing with an early motherboard in that first boot up screen. It used to be kind of daunting for people to be going kind of tabbing through a green screen interface. Whereas now it's like you got the mouse is detected. You can just click around. It's a full on UI. So KDE, for example, the last techie thing that I had to do was with the Steam Deck, trying to get Chiaki working so I could remote play from my PS5, right? And then you hit a bug or some issue and you have to go back to the kernel and figure things out. So like there's still a level of complexity there, but I hear you. I mean, it has gotten easier, but what I'm saying is like if I was to go and approach my Steam Deck or a ROG Ally and decide to like change the OS, I already am feeling like a little panicked about that.
I wanna give you some an extra boost of confidence. Chiaki and all of the best known Linux apps are pre-installed. So Chiaki's pre-installed. EmuDeck is pre-installed. It's part of the distribution. Literally, when you jump in, it brings you to a splash screen and it tells you here are all the best known Windows apps, and you literally select what you want. It has all of the web browsers. I'm going to lose a lot of nerd cred on this. I'm an Microsoft Edge user, even on Linux. Shit. Yeah, I am an anomaly. Yeah, Microsoft.
Why?
I'm my company, so I use all Microsoft apps, and Edge just integrates Microsoft apps so well. Like I can continue off, make notes, and yeah, I'm an anomaly. Right. I think I'm the only user who uses Microsoft Edge on Linux, but
I need to update your character sheet. Just give me
a second.
Yeah.
I lose a lot of nerd points on that. Literally, I'm gonna get a lot of angry with me, but yeah, it literally has everything pre-installed. There's a reason I'm recommending this. I never recommend people to get on Linux because of the hurdles, but this is one. Literally, it's EmuDeck, Chiaki, every single emulator known to man is there. Every single Office app, every single music. I'm an Apple Music user. They have a open source alternative to Apple Music, so you actually get all of these apps working on Bazai Linux fully. I can gush about it for hours. I'm on the same boat, Zim. It's I'm not a tech guy. Well, I am a tech guy, but I haven't been excited about building computers or repurposing or refurbishing devices in a long time. This is the
I'm
first
like
time.
You that way. Yeah. Like I think I own every single motherboard, chassis, dongle, little device. Like I own it all. It's all basically in operation. I just keep growing my family, so I need more devices, and I just hot swap parts and Frankenstein stuff until it works. So love that stuff. But yeah, you guys have started this podcast off in a very nerdy way. Yeah. Thank you for that. And Adam, save us, please. Please save us.
Get nerdy.
Over to you.
I feel like less nerdy now because I had kind of a techie thing that I experimented with, but it's not that exciting. But I will have one announcement that's not tech related, and that's that I've joined Zim in the ranks of becoming a MetaQuest creator officially.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Congratulations!
Talk about Meta now.
We have to dress the same. That's the problem.
Yeah, it was part of the the contract is that now we have to for some reason wear blue and black and match every time. But
look forward to it. Congratulations.
It's fun. Yeah, I think it was good for me in validation because I don't make content as frequently as I used to. I just can't. I also have a regular, I work at Live. I've got a job that I also love. But this is good. I think it's like, okay, I'm being recognized for something that I don't know if I fully deserve, but it's motivated me to remake more content again. So I'm trying on different platforms and other things again. So I feel like as long as I'm making something, like stuff might get weird. I don't know. I can't promise the sameness all the time, but we'll see what happens.
Nice.
So that was interesting. But my techie one, I feel like now mine is so minuscule compared to like Linux and even Audible's was a graphic audio, which sounds very violent and maybe X-rated, but I digress. Yeah. I'm not a VR chat person, but I like experimenting with stuff that you can get away with in there. And they added hand tracking support in their public open beta. So if you have a Quest 3, and you go through virtual desktop and you enable the I forget what it's called, but it's basically to emulate to pass the data over to Steam VR so that you can do hand tracking essentially with the Quest 3. Huh. But someone had asked me about the Leap Motion or the Ultra Leap or the Leap Motion 2 because I have one. And I was like, hey, I wonder if that would work. And it actually does. And because now there's actually a UI for it. So it's kind of weird and you can customize it. But like it does the traditional pinch as the trigger. But like movement is sort of like you hold your ring and like middle finger. And there's like a little, it's hard to describe in a flat scenario, but you kind of just drag it a little bit. And that's what gives you the forward and backwards momentum. And then same on the right hand. If for some
Whoa,
reason you want to
wait.
do a turn.
This is locomotion?
Huh? Yeah.
It's a
Or locomotion interacting with
locomotion
UI.
via hand tracking?
Yeah, if you wanted. I'm not saying it's the best
Yeah.
over
Oh my God.
controllers, but you can do it. But I guess it would be a pain if you're trying to switch between, interacting with UI, and then you'd have to go back to your controllers to locomote. So they kind of had to have something in there. It's not the best over controllers, but it works and it's interesting. As I said, not
Weird.
the best use case, but I found it interesting because I went in there and tinkered a little bit. And if you wanted to do a smooth or snap turn instead of physically turning, you can also do like a this with like this motion, and then there's like the jump is.
Are you giving
like
him a
your ring
talk to
finger
the
and
hand?
thumb.
Is that what it is? Little 90s plug there.
It's strange, but it's interesting. So I got to play around with that a little bit, both
Wow.
on the. I tried the Quest 3 with virtual desktop and the Leap Motion version. I would think the Quest, using the Quest was a little bit better. I feel like the field of view was wider on what it could track versus the Leap Motion, where if I, my hands go too far away, it kind of like yanks my hands back in front of my face unnaturally. But they both worked surprisingly. Again, but
So with that crazy locomotion means, are people in VR chat then also able to see your hands at the same time you're making these funny gang signs in front of you to be able to move, to conjure your movement?
I didn't try that, but I don't see why not. Because you're still moving like individual fingers to do it. It's got like the eye, as long as your avatar, which most do now, have the the IK to be able to do that. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to see it.
Huh.
And it's not. I mean, unless they're very subtle motions, like opening the menu is like a this. So it's not like you're making big grand gestures. And actually, if you do make big gestures, it kind of gets lost because you have to it's very small, subtle movements to get them to trigger. And it's like for the menu, it's almost like a bar that fills. Like you can turn off there's like little UI on the fingers. It's very small. So if you you can kind of watch the circle fill for the menu as you're pinching the fingers together, for example. But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I can see it for more if you really want a more expressive avatar, that's going to be pretty cool. But functionally, it's still a little challenging because even going through the menus, it's just easier in general on controllers. But it was fun. It's fun to play around with.
Is this something that only works with Steam VR then? It's like a plugin, or what's the software side of it? Because again, I was thinking of the use cases. I'm like, who would use this? This sounds nutty. But I was thinking back to Mark on stage a few Oculus Connects ago, where he said, eventually we'll just have the headset, kind of like the Apple Vision Pro, where you're like, just the headset and my hands, please, and let's go. But I suppose if it's Steam VR hooked, then it's I don't know. I still am trying to work out who would use this. What's the use case? What's the kind of is it purely experimental, or is there a niche application where this is quite important?
I don't know where it's going to go. It's in the public beta of VR chat on Steam, though. So I don't know where they're planning on going with this. But again, my guess is people who want more expressive avatars, because even with the Valve Index, you still kind of I don't know other people like me, but sometimes my grips don't react to individual fingers quite the same way. Or if you're a sweaty hands person like me, your hands just stay closed sometimes. So I have to wipe down the controller to open my hands. I don't know. Maybe that's just the individual I have issues thing. But I don't know. People get really hardcore into having the most realistic, lifelike avatars that they can as far as tracking the movement. So this might be for them, is my guess.
Well, that's why I thought, so back in the day, the original Leap Motion, I remember going into Alt Space VR with that, and it was such a cool thing. Most people had Vive ones or whatever, but they big clunky controllers really. And then to be able to have dexterous fingers, and be able to show hey, I want to go this way. Now, the comment you just mentioned about it being very limited field of tracking was true back then, where you had to kind of keep your hands in what felt like a letterbox and point or whatever you were doing. But people got very expressive and very Italian with their hands as they were talking in the game. And that was kind of fun. But that's where I suppose I would be interested. And that's what I thought you were saying. Initially, when you were opening with the concept here, I thought you were saying, okay, people in Quest 3 are passing through the skeletal, full arm hand tracking. then to the VR chat model so that you've got the fidelity and almost as an addition on top of the controllers that you've got, but you can set your controllers down and then you get that kind of full IK. So if that's possible, that's cool. And I believe that's coming at like an operating system level within the Quest environment, is that they're planning to pass to developers the ability to reflect the full body. I don't know if legs are coming, but I would hope so.
Yeah, at least upper body. But it's because I've even tried just the virtual desktop, what is it, like emulate Steam VR trackers, and it's pretty cool. I mean, let's be realistic. It's not because it doesn't track legs in the sense that if you lift up a foot, it's not gonna lift up your avatar's foot. But as far as turning, like being able to track the direction of your hands versus the direction you're facing, instead of your torso being super stiff because you have no tracking, at least now it can determine like, oh, if your hands are going this way, your torso's probably turning this way. So it's better. Not as good as actually having trackers, but better than not having anything, I suppose.
Okay. Have you done the foot hand test? Like we saw that that person on Reddit a few, like when they did the hand tracking, it was like a foot. The foot was the hand.
Test?
Yeah, the foot hand test. So
is that where
the
their
cameras,
foot turns into a hand tracker? Oh, I've seen that. That's disgusting.
it was kind of
No.
it was kind of
No, I will never. I'm not a monkey. Thank you.
That's funny
You
enough.
are a
That's
monkey.
that's when you were
Everyone
thinking
is.
about like use
Everyone is.
cases. That's the only use case that was going through my head was probably like accessibility, like somebody who doesn't have an arm and wants to map it as something else. That's the only way I could think of a use case for this stuff.
Oh,
God.
yeah. I mean, yeah, but normal people, what's wrong with you? You have hands. Please stop using it.
All right. And I saw a
Sick.
donation come in there. Thanks, Worst, for chipping us the 20. Much appreciated. Well, that's great. You three have had totally bonkers highlights today. This is definitely an oddball podcast. I just felt it from the very beginning, and my side's going to be no different. So I'm going to apologize now. Chad, I hope you enjoyed today's show, and do drop us your thoughts, or if there's any topics you want us to discuss as a crew later on, just give us a mention. Okay, today. I always say this, but today's going to be a little bit lighter than the normal one. But we're 40 minutes in already, and we're through three highlights, so maybe we'll still hit 2 hours. We'll see. Anyway, on to my highlights. So my highlight is three little bits. The first one I'll mention is a totally cool game, which I think, Adam, you've played. I don't know if the other guys have had a chance yet. But Shell Games, the wonderful crew behind everything from Water Bears to I Expect You to Die, have a game called Silent Slayer, which is about vampires sitting in a coffin, and basically there being, I'll call them room escape style puzzles in front of you, where you have to dismantle some security system to get access to the vampire and stab them in the heart. And this is an amazing fusion. You get the quality of the Shell games, but this like crossover between a horror game, because you're going to end up with a jump scare. If they hear you, then the vampire like jumps at you, and so you're basically like hovering over a sleeping person or a corpse, right? And they're just ready to leap at you, and it's scary when they do. But it's things like, a metal latch that's rusty, and you're like pulling it back, and it's creaking, groaning, and you're like, please no, please no, please no. And then you get a whole array of like, I'll call them dentist's tools, like totally different tools every single time, and you're kind of trying to break into this vampire's coffin. And I've only played it for maybe an hour or so, but like between drawing lines, evading what looked like a laser array, all different types of traps, prying out nails from a coffin and making sure that the nail doesn't drop to the floor and go clink clink. The game design mechanics in this game are second to none. It's really great. It reminds me of some of the best VR experiences I've had. My wife's now begging for me to like do another dedicated show on it because it's just so fun. But it's one of those that I have to urge, if you have like passed this over and you've gone, doesn't look that fun, it's really good. It's the first time I've ever seen, I think, horror elements and puzzle elements have such a wonderful marriage. So I'll pause there.
It's like that family game where you have like, you need to do a surgery on like it's like a
Operation.
board game. Operation, is that how it's called? Well, I mean, I only know the Dutch name, so but
go on, give us the Dutch name, right?
Yes, please.
I think it's called like Dr. Bob or something like that.
Dr. Bob.
I have to look it up now. I'm probably butchering it here, but there's no Dutch people watching this, so.
I actually haven't tried this. I know it seems like something I would play, but I think I don't know. It might be the anticipation might be too much for me. Like I like horror atmospheres, but I don't like when I know there's going to be a jump scare. Like just do it. Just do the jump scare. I don't want to know, but when I know but I could see how it would be a super fun stream game, and I appreciate the mechanics in it.
It's called it's called in Dutch it's called Dr. Bibber. And Bibber Bibber it's Bibber. It's a shaking, like when you're trembling.
Oh,
it's Dr. Trembling.
Like a shaking doctor.
That's how it's
Tremors.
called.
Trembling doctor. That's good. Like Dr. Nick from The Simpsons, basically. Cool. So you haven't tried it, Adam. That's funny because I thought that would be kind of up your street a little bit. Great game, really great game. I mean, I hope she'll make a fortune on that because it's really good. And it's, as far as I've seen so far, like undersung. But that might be my like favorite title of the month. Like it's really maybe even of the year. We'll see how it pans out. Well, the other one that I tried, which is something that Jose recommended and releases a little while back, so I wanted to report back for Jose's sake, really more than anything else, was a game called Game Death Hotel. Game Death Hotel is a weird game where you've either got like a variant of Texas Hold'em style poker, or like a chalice or goblet challenge where there's a series of game rules and you're basically plonking tablets or stones into the chalice, but the number of stones that can be held, or tablets that can be held by each other player's chalice is not known to you. So you have to, it's deductive reasoning. You have to work it out. And as the kind of kicker to all of this, you end up having to put up for ante some of your limbs, like your eyesight, your ears, your mouth, this kind of thing. And so you're playing around a table with other players. I played it with Resolve VR and That VR Girl and a couple of others, Gaming Veteran. And we were just kind of like playing the different game modes. But you start in this kind of creepy hotel, and it has kind of like anime style characters, but they're not too colorful. You know, it's not VR chat level. So it all fits pretty nicely. But then you kick off into a game, and that's easy enough to do. But this is like I would call it a pure multiplayer game. There is a single player experience, and I think it's about $25 or something. So I felt that was a little bit on the steep side. I would recommend it for maybe 15. But those experiences were super funny, and the game was really good. Like I would be happy to go back in and play another round or two, because as you're playing, if you lose the hand or whatever where you've put forward, let's say your mouth, and you lose your mouth, the other players get to see like blood gushing out of the place where you lost it. And then after it affects your game. So for example, if you lose your ears, everybody around the table sounds like chipmunks after that. Like they don't sound normal.
That. Wait,
and
if you lose your eyes, mouth, you not see?
It's like red. It's like a really limited red view. Kind of think, you know when you get inked in Mario Kart?
Works, yeah.
Like that?
Eyes, you see
I'm trying to think what you lose hands, right? So if you lose a hand, it's horrible. They show you like it's not just like a clean cut. It's like this limb has been ripped off basically, and the bones are protruding, and it's like it's horrible. And and then when you're playing, like there's certain things you can't do because you're now missing a hand. There's certain things that require multiple hands. So it's fun. It's a fun game mechanic. I think it was pretty well developed. It's probably too high a price point right now for kind of what it offers, is my feeling. But if you're somebody with a couple of friends, like a group of like 3 or 4 friends or more, and you're like, I want a VR game that's really unique, then that's a really fun, Saturday, Sunday night type of job. So good one for highlighting that previously, Jose. You definitely convinced me into it, and I had to go try and report back from the field.
It was actually a warning, but I guess
it was a warning. Yeah. Don't play this one. But the poker was particularly good because for people who really like Hold'ems and derivatives of Hold'em games, it's a derivative of Hold'em. It's not just straight Hold'em. So it's Hold'em where you have your 4 normal suits in poker, but then they have a death suit. And the trick there is if you have a death card in your hand at any time, and then you don't win the hand, your hand basically sinks to the bottom. So you will not win the hand essentially, and then you'll probably lose either money or a limb. And then if you have it, it's kind of like a super kicker. So if you end up having the strongest hand or whatever, it makes your hand like strong. So it's kind of a top and bottom, an extra top and bottom on top of the normal poker game. which is interesting and definitely fresh for someone who really likes poker. So that was cool. That was fun. And the last thing that I got to do, which was a good laugh, was and I saw we just had a drop out there. Hopefully, we'll get Jose back there in a sec.
In different places. Ooh.
I went to, and I think it's probably, I don't know what Meow Wolf was like to visit or whatever, but I went to a UV mini golf place. And I don't think I shared the pictures with you, Rowdy, but for anyone who's like really keen to see it, I posted on my Twitter. And everything was under neon lights the entire time. Everything is like fluorescent colors, and it's like tribal. And so 18 holes of mini golf doing that in real life was pretty damn cool. So that was fun. Did that with my wife and kids.
Mega Mart in Vegas by Meow Wolf is also very good, but you need like, if you want to discover like the whole story and the lore of the place, man, you need a lot of time because there's just so many little secrets you can find in that place. So Meow Wolf does such great installations or experiences or whatever you want to call them. So good.
I still want to get to one.
And a lot of energy. Because that's a hike. Like it's a hike going up and down those stairs at Meow Mart.
Gosh. So those are my little tidbits for the week. Anyway, we're gonna get on to some of the main topics next. But I thought I'd start it off nice and subtle. So the first one is about Immersed. Now I've had my critical eye on Immersed's coming Visor headset for some time. I think you said something about this last time we were meeting, Jose, as well. So there were some images leaked of the internals for the headset, which is touted to be, we'll call it sunglasses form factor for the headset. It's kind of very I want to call it Geordi looking visor, Geordi LaForge looking visor kind of thing from Star Trek. And the internals they remind me of like a Quest 2 with those really flat form factor fans. And I'm just wondering how light can Immersed actually get this visor. Now it's meant to be for work, right? Like the whole point is like being able to be productive with a light form factor headset. I don't even know if this is going to launch this year, but these internal images I thought looked I'm going to call it chunky. Last podcast we were talking about that prototype, which we thought was a little bit on the thick side, that was coming from Meta, their next edition of those Ray-Bans that have been really popular lately, the Ray-Ban Wayfarers. And these just, I don't know, I'm becoming less convinced that they can give us a slim form factor and still achieve their target. But what are your thoughts on this? And like, we've been talking about working in VR as well. Like, is this something you could imagine wearing? Does it look light enough for your needs in terms of the form factor? And could that replace a monitor for you?
I don't know. It looks a little bit flimsy in a way, right? Like as well. Yeah. Like it's a little bit like, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's hard to say from a picture like what the build quality of it is, but
yeah.
It like the picture of the person wearing it doesn't seem to be in line with the picture that is leaked a little bit, right? Because that looks like it's just like a pair of sunglasses.
If you look closely, there's kind of the exterior, and then nearer the face, kind of like those other I can never remember the glasses that Adam, you and Jose both have, and you use, like you plug them into a Steam Deck or whatever. I can never remember the name of them. X-Real. It's like those where there's kind of like two sets. You have the exterior and then internals that are closer to your face. So that's why the internals image was so important to me, because it gives you a better representation of really the kind of depth of the electronics behind that facade on the front. And I'm immediately going, like, I've got a pretty sturdy old nose, which is great. Can I prop up headsets? No problem. But like, it looks like that's going to maybe land on your nose, maybe uncomfortably.
Man, let me be as political as I possibly can be. I guess I would say, if don't trust marketing. That's the first thing when you're going to buy hardware that's upcoming. I think that the leak itself, I'll say this as a techie, somebody who's a tinker, when you buy a reference model from a manufacturer to build it, the manufacturer brands all the hardware components, It's very rare that the actual IP owner brands components as theirs. So the visor ribbon that goes from the camera is very weird to me because Visor itself is not a component maker. So
right. Yeah,
it's
that's a good
almost like
point.
it's almost like they wanted people to know what it was, which is very smart. In terms of engineering, it's very realistic to get to a decent hardware size when it comes to just decoupling a lot of components from a VR headset. It won't be thinner than maybe a big screen Beyond. I think the big screen Beyond is a really good reference form factor for when it comes to just 4K panels, pretty much as straightforward as possible to the eyes. What the visor is going to add is a very low powered or adequate powered, right? Because they're targeting enterprise, a very adequate powered CPU onto it. So if anything, it's going to probably be like a Quest 2 rebuilt in a big screen form factor. So
Right.
in terms of capability, don't expect anything more powerful than a Quest 2 maybe. Resolution is going to look really nice. This is going to be directly targeting virtual screen replication. Don't try to do games. There's going to be a lot of companies that are going to offer controllers and all of that stuff. I don't think that's going to be the best use case for it. But in terms of using it as a screen replication device, just a basic monitor, cell phones without screens work. I guess that's my best way to say it. It can be done. It's very feasible. It's all about just being realistic with expectations. This is not going to be like the size of glasses. If anything, it's going to be as close to a big screen as possible.
Yeah. And that's a fair assessment there, Jose. I saw a lot of comments remarking on this being, and this was on Reddit, so again, take it with a pinch of salt, but kind of they were saying dead in the water because of a requirement to unplug on your workstation any more than a single monitor. And the comments were, and I didn't quite catch what prerequisite that they were referring to, but I thought I would just open for discussion because the on-the-road use case, which I see you build and rebuild and re-engineer, is very cool and very attractive to me because if you're moving around a house, say you're trying to get away from noise, want to get somewhere private, you're in a hotel, you're on the road, you're like Rowdy, constantly traveling, right? Like having that like lightweight, collapsible form factor headset, so you don't have to drag a Quest around, because Quests are quite bulky, but like something that can pair and still give you that remote desktop capability, or even you have a laptop and have the visor to kind of enhance your experience, is an attractive sale to me. But I'm not so sure where the Immersed Visor is going to slot in yet.
Right.
Is that obvious to you? Because you seem to have a good.
It's a portable ultra monitor. If you are for example, Rowdy is the perfect user for something like this, right? He has two screen setup. He could just have his laptop or a desktop at home with really good internet, and he can just remote in and out from his desktop. And he can also have locally accessed monitor screens, which is kind of what people talk about hybrid computing, which is you're using, your browsers, basic apps on the headset running locally, but you also have an ultra wide screen that's actually your desktop streaming to it. In terms of the limitation, they're just curating the best experience as possible, right? These computers, virtualization of screens is kind of like a fringe new technology. A lot of companies have tried to reintroduce the concept. It's kind of falling down onto the hands of the graphics card manufacturers. So it's all about VRAM and capabilities of how many screens you can theoretically push out in high quality. So Immersed doesn't want to get into all of those, frictional situations. So they're just making it, one monitor at a time, makes it very easy, and they can eventually add more features. It's similar to how Apple Vision Pro released one screen and then they added ultra resolution. It's just quality assurance.
Yeah, and the thing you're I'm going to loop back to your Bazzite reference earlier, right? We were talking about Linux distributions and kind of getting down to bare bones. Like, what's the least amount of hardware that I need to get me to what I need to do? And here we're talking productivity. We're not talking gaming. I don't need high performance CPU in the headset itself. I want to be able to remote connect. I'll probably need a keyboard for physical input. I'll probably need a mouse, but I don't want to have to drag another computer around with me. And I do want to remote connect back to a machine. So we're like getting back to that point where there's definitely a kind of corner of this market that could deal with productivity and be a really sleek little headset and just slot it right in there. And I feel like Immersed is targeting that.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I've sold on the product yet. So I don't know. It's an interesting one.
I'm with you there.
It's just like, so I don't really know. It doesn't look like it's something that I would buy, but like the second we get to a monitor replacement headset that you can use while traveling, it's like an immediate purchase, I would think, for me. Because like I'm sold on virtual displays. So I don't know if today the better use case, which has more usability and more things you can do with it, is that XReal solution. Right. So I mean, Adam, you were working this way. Like what's your opinion on like where we need to go and the direction Immersed should be headed?
I mean, I feel like it's nice to be able to say this, that we do have a lot of different options now when it comes to virtual displays in like some sort of glasses format. But honestly, I think I just stick with a company that I trust more for now. Like Immersed really needs to prove itself. It needs to actually make the product for one, and then, like then be able to show that they can actually back it and not just abandon it. Like there's a lot of factors in there that I'm kind of iffy about versus like XReal, they've come out with, Air Original 2, I forget what the other one's called now, Air 2 Pro, Ultra something, Ultra Pro, let's add on a bunch of, or even like, the Quest, I guess if you want to combine, separate out the virtual from virtual reality from virtual monitors. So I don't know, there's a lot of options out there that I trust more, I think, than, and I'm not saying that like every company has to start off as a no name, so I realize that, but I don't have to take those risks anymore when there's already existing products out there with a better track record.
And the cost actually matters. I was just thinking that. So like what's the cost roughly of like the XReal? Aren't they around like the $500-$600 mark?
No.
Little cheaper.
I'm thinking Canadian dollars, that's why. So what is it in US dollars then? Like $350?
How much is it in real money? Yeah.
It's like between $350, $400, but it depends on like bundles and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, because my understanding is that Immersed Visor is going to be around the $1,000 mark. So...
And it has a subscription.
And the subscription.
That's what I wanted to bring up.
I wouldn't touch it.
I know I talk a lot about all this stuff quite a bit, but I remember mentioning a while back on the podcast that I truly believe that the virtual replication market is going to be built by an industry that's interested in virtual replication and not software. Immerse's biggest goal is to move the Immersed platform, which means each hardware is going to be used as a Trojan horse incentive for you to subscribe to the Immersed platform. The realities are that what they're selling isn't really screen replication. They're selling remote collaboration infrastructure, which is very important, but it's not going to be the headset that we're talking about, which is the one that's going to enable us to replicate our monitors in high resolution, to have all those features, because those features that we're talking about will enable collaboration on other platforms, which goes against their goal of pushing Immersed. Right. Yep. So the realities are that I think that what we're going to see is the first glimpse of what a virtual replication hardware reference model looks like. I think that's why Qualcomm is working really well with Immersed, because the platform will push headsets for at least people to put their eyes on it. But I think that maybe I keep saying a company that makes TVs, Sony or whoever. I heard Microsoft is doing one too, and they've specifically said media consumption. LG. So I think that's,
So it sounds like someone else will serve the need that we are looking for.
Yeah.
These guys have a very specific hook dropped into the pond.
Yeah.
And,
unless you want to pay for it and then just not use the platform. And that's
like Adam says, they got to prove themselves. Okay. So that was Immersed's Visor. Any other comments on that? No. Okay. So next up, we're gonna go to the obituaries section of the podcast. Love this part. I actually try to steer this ship clear of this most podcasts, but it's hard to avoid sometimes. All right. So first up, Ready at Dawn. We got to talk. The company, the studio behind Lone Echo 2, a number of other titles, apparently is being shut down with immediate effect due to budget ceilings. So targets internally at Meta. I'm not really surprised, honestly, given the lack of output in the last 3 years from that studio, but their quality, and I would think that their game design and engineering practices, some of which have stabilized player locomotion, made Space Drift actually comfortable with their kind of invisible dot grid platform. The cinematics that we saw and from everything from the lighting to the characters in the Lone Echo series were just incredible. So awesome studio, but yet another in the line of Meta axe jobs, unfortunately. So that's Ready at Dawn. Anyone here have any thoughts about that?
It's a shame,
Hard
right?
to know. Like, it's like, did they not receive enough support from Meta, or were they just like they just couldn't come up with something else? You know, like it's. I know there's a lot of speculation, but it's just so hard to know, and we're probably never gonna know because they're not gonna ever release something like that. But it is regardless, it's still sad. It's one of the OGs, and I don't know.
Feels like a domino effect to me to some extent. Remember, I mean, we had Boz, was it last summer, essentially mentioning, oh, hey, we're gonna, take servers offline for Echo Arena, and that would allow us to kind of, refocus on a further development. And I don't think we ever saw what that development was, and so I'm wondering if in the studio themselves they bled some talent as a result, because normally when you get that kind of people take the writing on the wall and they go, I'm going to go find another job. Thanks. Yep. The other thing that I would say about the studio is, from what I've read about this news, which was circulated in an internal memo, is that they've been encouraged to kind of look for other jobs within the company. So they're kind of just dismantling the house, but the people might still find homes, and so that those talents may still find their way into existing, I'll call it Oculus Studios, and other Meta Holdings companies. So that's Ready at Dawn. But yeah, I definitely the pedigree here and the the names behind these studios. I kind of wish I knew them. At the same time, I know it's a sea of talented folks. So be good to see that come of that decision a couple years later. Well, we've got another one with a very similar story. And thanks to Jose for spiking this news to me. It's that Chromecast is being shuttered by Google. So Google decided to end the production of the Chromecast devices. And so get them while I still can, if you want to cast your older devices. I'm aware Chromecast features are baked into some televisions, for example. Support for Chromecast actually ended in 2023, so they weren't going to further develop the platform. And this is now the hardware side being shuttered, and that shut down as well. So for those who've been in VR for many years, particularly those who've been casting to families or trying to get your family around the television, Chromecast offered a very simple point-to-point, point-and-shoot kind of interface for things even as far back as like the Samsung Gear VR and Oculus Go. You were able to point them to a Chromecast on a TV. Helpful to devs, for example, if they were trying to show off a game at an indie show, something like that. So feels like another one for the books, but we're going to wave goodbye to Chromecast.
Yeah, buy them while you can. I wonder how long the stocks are going to last.
Probably don't. Those things are like $30 if I have my OU.
Because how long are they still going to support this, right? If they're dying it off, like, is it smart to be buying it now? No, I don't know.
Supposedly, I don't necessarily believe this, but they said that they were planning on supporting them for a while after, even if they weren't going to be selling the physical device. But again, take that with a grain of salt.
It's one of those things. That's like buying I don't know, even buying like a Quest 2 now, right? Look at the device like, you don't got long, right?
Yeah,
you might have a couple of years.
And also like in the past years, I did find the way that Chromecast worked to like get slowly worse. Like it wasn't like it was an upward trend of improvement. Like just connection issues. Maybe it's. I mean, I got like I don't know. I haven't used it in a while, but it was like it's like built into the TV, so it's like one of those TVs that supports it from the get-go, and it's just it's gotten so slow. Like, and it's still getting updates and stuff like that, but it's so slow for it.
Could that be the CPU in the TV?
5 minutes. Yeah, could be that is.
Is it a Samsung TV?
Because I just used Chromecast on I'll call it a modern TV. TV bought in the last 5 years. Remote casting from a Quest 3 to show Richie's Plank experience to my father-in-law and a few other extended family members. And honestly, it was one of the first times I probably used Chromecast like 3 times in my life. Like it has not, I never
Right.
bought a device. It's always been someone else's, or you're in an Airbnb and you cast it so that you can show your buddies. But it worked very well for me. So just in contrast, just this summer.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I'm lamenting more that the platform is going. I think the dongle form factor, like we were talking actually just pre-podcast about kind of Bluetooth devices and stuff, like it becoming an integrated, supported capability or function makes a lot more sense to me. And it looks like Google don't see a future for that. So
Well, they do. It's just business, right? If we just spoke about Visor and pushing the immersed, right? Google has an app store. They have a movie library. They have their TVs have app stores too. If you're enabling people to just purchase or download or stream their web browser onto the TV, you don't even need to subscribe to Netflix anymore. You can just go on Google and watch, XYZ movie free online and stream it. It's piracy. It's all about selling a product.
yeah. Well, that's another one. Nail in the coffin. What are you giving Rowdy a dig over? I didn't catch that.
Nothing. No,
Nothing.
He's definitely not pirating anything. Nope.
Yeah, yes, it's Rowdy's fault. Yep. Literally putting a stream to Chromecast right on his server.
See what happens. All right. So the last one, and just for a little bit of adult fun, I thought I'd throw you from the grimy sewers over at Reddit a little meme I saw, which I snickered at, and we'll move quickly past this. But I wanted to share this with all of you. It's lovely. Let me see if you get it when you see the image on stream, and we'll leave that up there for a minute. I'll call this one the couch. Okay. Jose got it.
Oh man, I wouldn't even want to sit there. That's
a good one. So it's a bunch of old headsets, but this is a classic internet image, but done again in VR headsets.
Adam is so innocent that she doesn't understand why.
Doesn't get it.
I'm trying to figure out
the color of the headsets. There's a color pattern to the headsets.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right. They're all devices.
A little slow.
The funny thing that
they're gonna get jumped.
Yeah, there's a famous scene with a very light-skinned lady on a couch, and then a bunch of dudes behind.
Oh no.
That's that one. So, but when I saw that image first, this is the funny part. I must be innocent myself. I know I'm not, but I saw it and I just was like, oh God, they're all facing the window. I was like, don't burn these headsets. I know they're old, but it was a fun little one. So
oh no.
Gave you that from Reddit.
The age disparity between these is a little bit controversial for my liking.
Yeah. It's funny because I haven't seen a PSVR1 lit up like that in 3-4 years. Like I barely remembered what that headset was like, let alone the Move controllers, So that's that. Oh, thank you, Rowdy. Rowdy's playing in chat. Okay, so we like gorgeous games, and I suspect you do as well. So here's one that's coming to Steam soon that just dropped an eye-watering trailer. It's Subside. We saw a teaser trailer before for this. This is from developer A2D, and I just want you to have a look and go ahead and narrate and share your comments as Rowdy throws that one up. This is I don't know if I call it a game, more of an experience than a game, but there are some game elements to it. So similar to Subnautica in years past, underwater can look great. The other one that we saw more recently was Kayak VR. So yeah, A2D was the developer.
Oh, so pretty.
Yeah.
I don't know if he did it already, but he mentioned that he's taken the demo that was on the Steam store off to revamp it and make an updated version, because he actually only developed this and tested it using the Quest 3. He didn't have any a Valve Index or Knuckles, so I think he actually got himself a kit, and he's like, wow, yeah, swimming was really bad with the Knuckles. I'm so sorry. Let me rework some stuff, which I didn't think it was too bad with the Knuckles, but I could see as a developer, you're very picky about how it feels, especially if it's swimming involved. So he's such a nice dude. He's very dedicated to just, he's one person making this too, which is crazy. Wow. But I'm really excited to see the full when it comes out. I'm gonna be doing a lot of swimming in virtual reality.
Yeah, it's but even like the animation of the fish and the sharks and things underwater, the murky in the cave, like just the water particles. So I'm really smitten in this, as you said, solo dev project. I love solo dev projects because
Same.
oftentimes they can pour their heart and soul. They're up late. They're working like just on one dream, you know, and so it can be their dream and consistent.
It's not bound by like, oh, this needs to be released, you know, by this time because otherwise, you know, I'm going broke or like whatever. Because like it's often like a passion project on the side, right?
And what is his obsession? Is it ocean? Is it the fish life? Because there's so much attention to detail here that I want to know, like, what is he going after? Because
the water particles is like what
particles.
Really, yeah. I think particles.
Like I keep thinking of Anton. Like this is like the fish, like the water physics, like equivalent of Anton. Like somebody who is hammering down a skill specifically, and it's really cool.
But I just like this started off as like walking simulators, I would say. And like maybe even earlier than that, it was just little 5-minute demos that we got like back in the DK1, DK2 days. Then we ended up with walking simulators, gorgeous surroundings with like Unreal Engine, for example, some of the earlier variants of that. Now we're getting to this level of fidelity. Fast forward a year or two, we're going to have AI infused, you know, visuals on top of this. Like, and this category, I guess I would call it like good vibes. Like it's a good vibes category where you can just kind of go in and just be in an environment and kind of hang out. And I think that holodeck experience is really important for VR because for people who aren't interested in gaming, like to have some place they can just disappear to and they're like, wow, we've said it before, I'm not in a hospital bed, or, you know, maybe I'm strapped in my house because I broke my leg and it's like, I just want to escape for a little bit. This is so cool. I really, really adore these projects and for people who put their time into them. So hats off to them. The only thing I think they need to change is I still don't think that their logo is good. I think it reads like Subside when the name is Subside. And anyway, we'll leave that for that criticism for another day. Let's go to another gorgeous game that's coming. This one is not out yet, but you'll be familiar with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is coming, albeit delayed to 2025, which I find hilarious. The sequel to the 2020 title, which has stunned so many people and strained so many PCs. Loads of people went to the 30 series cards just to be able to run the game properly in VR. There's a new little news bite that just came out about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and that's that they're going to allow players to walk around the world. So after you land your plane, you can go walk up your favorite mountain and sit there and just take in the sights, which I think is nuts. The scope of that is enormous. And the amount of detail they put into Flight Simulator 2020 was huge as well. They kept remapping famous cities and local areas and like making things just look stunning. And this game already is, as I said, having graphics cards melting. So for 2024, like get your VR systems ready because that's gonna need some processing power. I dare say. So
think about the people that use this professionally, like for sim work.
Well, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so cool. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you all was, if you had to pick a place, right? You're in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. You've got an early build of it. Where are you setting that plane down? Where are you going for a walk? Like where are you using this walkabout feature? Really curious.
Hawaii. Easily. Just revisiting places that I've been to, or even shoot, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but in Maui, there's a town that burned down. Like I wonder where they take their data from. Like how far back or how, you know, so it'll be interesting to see. But I had no interest. I was like, flight simulator. Yeah, cool. Looks pretty. But when you mentioned like, oh, you actually get to get out of the plane, that I might actually be interested in.
It's good.
Terrible
good choice.
Flying. Really good at crashing or landing.
Yeah.
I want to go in the places that you're not allowed to go. Like the ones that Microsoft Flight Simulator doesn't have like the rights to even like build like country like the roads for it. Like take me to North Korea. That's where I want to go. Like, I want to see what that looks like.
Answer. He's gonna Naruto his way into the north.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Rowdy, you got an idea?
I don't know.
Where would you land your plane?
I do. I mean, probably a place I haven't been to, but that I probably will one time. Maybe like the Rocky Mountains or something like that. Like we do have them here in Canada as well, which is absolutely gorgeous. So I think like, going to the Rocky Mountains in the US then would probably be something I would like to do. Yeah.
Looking for some quality meats, Jeffrey Dahmer style. I like it. Very good. So for me, and again, sorry, this might be construed as a little political, but I would love to, and similar to Adam, I love the idea of a time capsule. And when I go to Google Maps, I'm often, they have multiple year layers, and you can kind of go back through the years. I'd like to go see pre-conflict Ukraine. I'd like to go just land and just have a kind of a meander around to kind of educate myself what was there prior to how it is now, and then compare. And I will also give a little shout just to say, good on you, Ukraine, for invading Russia this week, because they deserve it. Anyway, I'm gonna stop
like,
there.
Is Microsoft, are they updating the maps in real time? Like, wouldn't Ukraine in the game be pre-war game? I don't think they updated the game to like I'm laughing because it sounds so insensitive, like when I think about it. But I don't think they edited Ukraine post-war. Like that would be nuts
how would they get the data?
How does it work now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
they got the data before the war. Like, I don't think they added war devastation to Ukraine in the game now.
I have no idea how that works. If there's someone riding around in a Google Maps truck in the middle of
oh my God,
of conflict-stricken Ukraine, that is a hard job.
Can you imagine the patch notes for that added the destruction from last week into
But isn't this weird though? Because then you have reality drift, right? The virtual twin, the virtual representation of a place is now being time phased, and that which was there is no longer there. I mean, it's similar to what's happening in the Middle East, or you could land somewhere in China, like after a dam floods, what does the terrain look like? Like that's going to be quite a reality for us going forward, especially as people, I hate to say this because it's dystopian, but as people do less traveling and more virtualization of a place that they want to visit, and they're like, oh, I've seen it. I've walked that place. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what it really looks like.
Yeah.
So
have you guys ever heard or seen, it's an anime store, but VR people love it, Serial Experiments Lane? Have you guys heard of it?
What is this?
Man. Serial Experiments Lane, LAIN.
I just want breakfast cereal now.
Well, I'm sure somebody in the chat has seen it, but it's called Serial Experiments Lane, LAIN. It kind of goes into it. It's actually a precursor to The Matrix. The Matrix is heavily inspired by this anime series, and it really goes into that, which is, I don't want to get too into it, but it goes into like how real is our real life compared to the digital world, and they go into what you just described in a very eerie way.
Huh. Okay. So digital drift. Yeah. The whole idea of time phase. Interesting. Okay. Serial Experiments Lane. Yeah. That's a hard one to receive verbally and get it right for spelling. Okay. And so that's available in, is this like paperback format, like a manga, or it's an anime? It's watchable.
Really hard to find. It's an anime. I saw the anime, but I highly just Google it. I'm sure there's a lot of VR people speak very highly about this because it's really about that. It's really meta.
I mean, if anyone else is like me, like one of the main reasons that drives me to sit down every 2 weeks with these fine people is I just extract like these little recommendations from them, and then I go off and have a great time, because I would have never run across this in my life at all. Definitely not. Rowdy's laughing in truth, I think, right there.
Yeah, exactly. So. I do the same. I do the exact same in that regard. Like just like. Take like the little things I find interesting. I put them in my little notes, and I check them out whenever I find the time.
Yep. I'm just taking gold nuggets. That's it. We're just a bunch of miners here. All right. On to the next one. All right. So this is the one that I designed for good old Rowdy. But if you're feeling about ready for some brain strain, then this is the game for you. So an App Lab game, a game that was originally launched in 2022 on Steam, has been upgraded and given multiplayer support. It's called iFetch Rocks, and it is an in-depth logic circuit game about collecting rocks in space. So you have a spaceship that's kind of at risk, fledgling, and you are in control of all the logic components around it, including its controls, like how you move the ship and all this kind of stuff.
It's
You
an
have to
analog
cable.
spaceship.
It's an analog spaceship. And so
Wow.
you have to, like a network cabinet, like do all the wiring yourself to get things to work. And the creator wanted to help imbue like the basics, the fundamentals of computer science, logic circuits, and all of that into a
Cool.
game. So there's a bit of education in addition to the gameplay, where like it's, I suppose most of the reviews describe it as like 90% logic circuits and tinkering with your ship, getting that kind of correct, and 10% like gathering space rocks and bringing them back. So I don't know. It looked like a kind of game that I'd want to spend some time and play with Rowdy one day. So there you go. That reminds me, actually, Rowdy, what was that? What was the game with the where you were cloning yourself and creating all those mechanisms, trying to beat levels that you really
T for
liked about
God?
2 years ago? Not T for
No,
God.
no.
It's like
Plant game,
3
right?
words in the name.
Where you were
Say it again?
Clock
planting, you're
something?
making plants, right?
Yeah.
Clock something?
Oh, the last Clockwinder. Is it?
Yes, I played
Yes.
it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Rowdy recommended me that game.
now, last Clockwinder is single player only, right? There's
Yes.
no multiplayer in that. I wish that Clockwinder was multiplayer. So this is my ode to the devs behind Clockwinder. I forget the studio. Guys, make your game multiplayer, because that would be an awesome situation. And I'm so glad that this dev, again, I think it's a single dev, has decided to upgrade their game and give people something really, again, hard as nails to dig into. But if you're a geek and you like engineering things, those kinds of experiences in VR can be really, really fun. There you go. So that is iFetch Rocks. Okay, with that, let's go on to a main topic for today. And this is a dicey one. This is a dicey one. Definitely another Marmite place for the internet. I love it when VR runs aground on the rocks of debate, heated debate, and a mixture of PEBCAC level problems and just misinformation. Love it. The whole vortex of all this. Can't get enough. And then, of course, people, getting into a new headset for the first time or trying it in a new way and just having so much fun. So we're going to talk about the PSVR2 PC app and the PC adapter that just released. And I'm speaking about those in 2 distinct parts, specifically because the adapter, I don't think any of us have. I did get a chance to use the virtual link capability, which is basically an old, outdated connection, unfortunately. I wish it didn't die like the dinosaur, but it's died off and is no longer supported by modern graphics cards. But in short, it's a USB-C looking port that you can connect into and actually can drive your PSVR2 headset. And so what happened was about 6 months ago or so, after a fun little run in Helldivers 2, which I was playing flat and on my big cinema screen in my PSVR2 connected to PC, Sony pushed an update and they bricked my headset and I couldn't play anymore with it in that way. And I was very upset. And I was like, damn it, Sony. I didn't go knocking on their door, say, give me my money back. But then we got the news, because we thought that might be indicative of something is up at Sony. We got the news of an official PC adapter to bring the headset, its motion controllers, and capability for running PC VR games in an external format. Now, the box itself is this clunky little black box, and you connect it via DisplayPort cable. If you don't have one, you need to buy one. It's separate to the adapter product. Also separate to the adapter product, which is weird, is the need to have a Bluetooth dongle as well. And unfortunately, it doesn't work with just any Bluetooth dongle. Some PCs with modern motherboards do have an internal antenna, and you can connect to that way. From my testing, all of my Bluetooth 4 dongles didn't work. This is a Bluetooth 5 one. I used the TP-Link UB500, and that did work, but it only worked after I patched it with the latest drivers to bring it up to basically Bluetooth 5.3. Prior to that, I would get the kind of annoying, frustrating controllers are connected. The PSVR2 app is free. You download that on Steam. That's the companion app. And you need the software to basically hook in order for it to progress through the menu. So it's another one of those frustrating walls where if you're stuck on a step and you don't think to update your Bluetooth drivers, or you don't think to, move the adapter into the middle of your room with an extension cable so it gets away from either the antenna noise of your PC, a Bluetooth adapter stuck in like a USB 3 port, a USB 2 port might be more successful. There's an array of like recommendations and tweaks in terms of your setup that can make you reach a successful level, and then it allows you to kind of advance the PC connection. And the beauty of all of this is that once successful, you can play PC games on your PSVR2 headset, and it works very well. Now, there are other problems with this, so I'm going to talk about a couple of them. But before I do that, I wanted to open. Jose seemed to be spirited about this before I started. You were saying something about Bluetooth, right? Like, what was your point about Bluetooth in 2024?
Like it's crazy to me that people are having so many Bluetooth woes, and it's what you just described. Is keep your stuff updated, keep your computers and devices updated. It's remarkable to me how people don't like updating their computers. Just update your devices, update your computers. I saw a lot of people complaining on Twitter. It's like, my Bluetooth ain't working, da 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 da. And I DM'd them, asked them for their system settings, and they hadn't updated the computer in almost like 3 years. It's like, dude, there's your answer. Like, update your stuff.
So this is funny because I used to be a very judgmental PC builder guy, where one of my friends inevitably, who wasn't quite as tech savvy, hadn't updated their graphics driver, and they had a new game out and it wasn't working well. And I'm like, dude, just download this, run it. You're sorted, right? It's like, how simple can you get? And the trouble is when you're inundated in that stuff and you deal with it all the time, it comes to you. So obvious, right? Like, so obvious. Just update the driver, no problem. I would never have thought to update my Bluetooth driver. Never. I would have thrown this all out. I would have bought the adapter separately. In fact, I did. The first thing I did the day it became available to us Canadians, and it was on Canada's Amazon.ca, I bought the device, I bought the adapter, and with that I bought a DisplayPort cable. But I wasn't going to buy a Bluetooth adapter because I was like, I've got like 7-8 different Bluetooth adapters. Surely one of them is going to work. On their website, they say Bluetooth 4 and up. I've got like 6 different Bluetooth 4 adapters. It's gonna function. But then I saw a retweeted post from Nathy. So thanks to Nathy, which basically said, oh, guess what? The old virtual link port thing, that trick that was originally a feature of the headset, albeit to a very, very niche audience, anyone with like a 20 series GTX graphics card. I happen to be one of those lucky sods. Don't need to buy the adapter. And so I took a risk and I said, okay, cancel my order. Because I'm like, I don't want to spend $100 Canadian if I don't have to test this thing. I'm not even going to know if I'm going to like it or ever have a use case for it. And then I kind of panicked because halfway through my day, everyone's like, oh, it's sold out, sold out, sold out. And I'm like, shit, I haven't even tested this shit yet. Like, what's going to happen to me tonight? If I can't get it to work, I'm going to panic. And so I get to the end of my day, right? And I tried this. I actually had scheduled a show and everything. I always do this for myself. I always load the wagon and then I'm like trying to bail water out, trying to get everything working in time. I love it. I love working to a deadline. And so then I got talking to friends of mine to kind of take tips about what maybe I could do, because I spent an hour going through different devices, wasn't connecting. One controller would connect, but not the other one. And then once they were paired to the system, it wouldn't allow me to unpair them. And so I was getting a bit frustrated with the whole thing, going like, I don't know what's going on here. And so I imagined that most people, like your average Joe or Jane, would come along and probably have this kind of problem. And the issue is that the Bluetooth thing, like, it's not the main adapter, and it's not the virtual link. It's something else, right? And my thought is, well, hang on, Sony, why didn't you just build in Bluetooth into the adapter so that, like, it's already a big fat breakout box. Surely you could fit an antenna in there, and then that would be close enough to the headset, and you'd get perfect tracking, and no one would have to faff this way. So my only recommendation there, I suppose, to Sony next time is like, I don't know. I feel like it's a lot of unnecessary noise that you could have engineered your way around. To your point, Jose, I think this is more finicky than maybe you'd expect.
Yeah.
And it's because of people like me who we've got so many Bluetooth devices. Like it's kind of like when sound cards went integrated. At some point in our PC careers, you would always buy a sound card to build in your PC. And then at some stage, onboard sound got good enough that you're like,
Right.
it's fine. I'll live with a non-dedicated PCI card. And now we've gotten there with Bluetooth, where it's like, I'm fine. It's like I'm fine. No worries. It's gonna be everything's gonna be grand. And so I've heard a lot of complaints specifically around Bluetooth. Now, the actual software, once you get it to hook, is actually really well done. But you might have questions about the setup because there's some weird things that go on. And this is what I'll call the orange Mr. Miyagi experience. You know, the wash on, wash off thing in Karate Kid. So the scanning that the PSVR2 headset normally does for the room mapping is really cool. It's one of the first features I remember when I put my PSVR2 on my head. I was like, holy shit, this is so much better than the Meta Guardian system. Like, it's mapping the floor and the walls, and I just have to look around, and it's kind of fun to do when you do it. And then it remembers it for next time. Giving Meta a good hard elbow there. So that's not there, right? That's not there. So you connect it to your PC, you get the app running, you go through all the various setup steps. It's pretty quick, maybe takes you 10 minutes. And then this is kind of like a one-time thing. That's good to know because you don't have to do this setup every single time. But this like orange like look, and I've given you a video of that, Rowdy. I don't know if you've shown it yet, but basically you use your head as the washcloth, and your room, your area is painted in like orange, like this weird like orange color. It's translucent, you can see through it. But then what you do is you like move your head around to like wipe the orange paint off your screen. And that's its equivalent on PCVR as room mapping. But it is not room mapping the same way that it did when it was on
in the console.
PSVR2 on the console. On the console, you have to kind of map in front of you, on your sides, behind you almost, right? You have to do a lot. The cone in front of you actually is very small that it needs. Very small. Like, you're able to do it in like maybe 3 wipes and it's happy and it's like, room setup done. And I'm like, really? I don't think so. Like,
what did you map?
Yeah, what did you get in that moment? Like, so I don't know. It worked, right? And then I didn't have tracking problems really per se with the headset, but that kind of like orange like wipe the floor setup was very unique. Weird. And then you get through that step, right? You get to the next step. And then came the controller problems. So I have a weird problem, and I've seen this repeated for others, where you have your 2 controllers, they're connected happily to your Bluetooth dongle. You've gone through all the software setup steps, and then you're ready to play. One thing I noticed in the pass-through, in the black and white pass-through on PSVR2, when my controllers were sat on my desk, one was lit up with all the tracking lights on the ring, and the other one didn't have that. And it was consistent the whole time I was testing. One had the tracking lights, the other one didn't. And so I'm pretty careful with my controllers. I don't remember ever smacking them on a wall or having that kind of problem. My suspicion is that, and I've got the little dongle like right next to where I'm playing. I've got it on an extender cable, all this kind of stuff, right? But my right hand would get stuck. Kind of reminded me of like Windows mixed reality. So the left hand, always accurate, great. Right hand, right, would like get stuck in the air and then not move. And you'd have to like wag your hand around for it to kind of like unstick. And I think it's either a driver that's confused or a bandwidth problem. Like the two are communicating to the dongle, maybe on different frequency bands, maybe on the same frequency band, but one of them is losing it. It's losing its shit for some reason. And I need to do more testing to see if I can get this to go away like permanently. So that's the only thing that I would say is on the negative side for me was Bluetooth dongle would have been a nightmare. I wouldn't have had the right device were it not for a fun little Behaptics vest adapter that they shipped a proper TP-Link UB500 adapter. Was the correct
I wouldn't
one.
have known to even update if it weren't for Behaptics similar issues.
Just about to think they gave you the Behaptics. I was thinking about that. So
Behaptics give you a proper out of the box TP-Link UB500 adapter, and I'm like scrolling through the list of like recommended devices on Sony's website, and I'm like, oh look, so the other company, the kind of fledgling startup VR company, shipped a proper adapter, and you can't even include it in the box, right? Like, it's not integrated. It's not a separate product. Anyway, so that's me on my little high horse there for a moment.
I wanted to mention something too, for desktop users. I would recommend a PCI-based Bluetooth adapter. They usually have combos with wireless. Those have better bandwidth. It could also be a limitation of the USB 2.0 or the 3.0, especially if you have a lot of multiple USB devices. There could be a bandwidth issue. There is a known bug in the emulation scene for the Switch controllers. And it's similar to what you're describing, Zim, where, because the way that the Switch Bluetooth connects to Windows is the two controllers connect to the computer, but then the computer kind of synchronizes them as one controller, which I'm assuming that's probably what the PlayStation VR controllers are doing also. And they're fighting over that Bluetooth connection. Yeah, so it could just be as simple as bandwidth.
They're not equal citizens, is the feel, right? Yeah. So I don't think it's, I think PD just described it in a way that I like, right? One is dominant, and the other one is like the submissive secondary. Yeah. So you've kind of got a little relationship happening between the controllers. I unfortunately selected my left controller when I was setting up. Now I'm right-hand dominant, right? So having my right hand float or whatever every so often, terrible, right? Like it's an experience that I would, if I can't fix that, that's it, game over for me, right?
And how often is it usually happening?
It's pretty regular. Every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, right? Yeah. So enough that you would go back in the box. Now I have a different problem, and I'm trying to get the problems out of my way, so now I can gush about the experience because it's fucking awesome. In another way, so the why did I go to my head? The right controller pairing component was okay. So Bluetooth was a problem. Pairing the controllers was a problem. There was a third thing I was going to say, but I've forgotten. So I'll move on to the good stuff. So, all right, I was expecting, okay, I'm going to go into this OLED panel. I'm going to have a headset that has, and controllers have no rumble, and I'm going to go ahead and connect this thing up. And what I found, once I'd connected it, I honestly, my jaw dropped, because I was like, okay, you said no HDR, no rumble. That's what I got from Sony's blog. No HDR, no rumble. There fucking is rumble, right? But it's like, it's not the adaptive triggers type haptics. It's more just like a punchy rumble pack type haptic that you get in the controllers. But it is strong in contrast to a Quest 3's haptic feedback, at least double the kick. So that stood out to me immediately. The second thing was, because it's an OLED panel, just like I had been playing with Helldivers as per my earlier story, I was like, I know I was expecting the colors in the headset to be quite good, the lighting to be something that like really made me feel good. But what I wasn't expecting was for me to all of a sudden realize that I started by playing Dread Halls, because for those who don't know me, I was playing Dread Halls for many, many years. It's a scary game. The blacks are literally lights off black. Like, it is. Lights are out. You're looking down the corridor and you're like, you know, that little like Neanderthal feeling where you're like, shit, something's going to get me. Like, yeah, it's that. It's like the little kids scared out at night and you're like, you start to get that little bit of terror like coming up in you. That is great. That is fantastic. The colors of the black. But I didn't think that the color temperature, like the way that color looks in the headset, the gamut, was going to be as wide as it is. So like I went into Skyrim, for example, and the evergreen color, the bark, the pine needles, the browns and the greens, it like looks real. And that's all great. So that's the blacks and the colors. And then in the middle of all of this, the thing that hit me like a wet fish in the face from the moment I went into Dread Halls was there wasn't any compression. And I didn't even know I've been seeing through compression for all this time. For anyone who's got glasses, it's like when your glasses are schmeary and you clear the lens. Yeah. And then you're like, oh shit, I can see right through. Everything's clear. Holy shit. That's Like, you know when you feel like you could reach out and touch something in the virtual world? That's how it felt. Like I was in Skyrim. I'm like, I could touch that tree. That feels so cool. So I felt like I was right back to when Mike, Mr. Virtual Reality Oasis, he lent me for a week or maybe a month. I think it was a month. The HP Reverb G2. And I remember going into Skyrim and being like, I have eagle vision. I was like, shit, this is cool. Like I'd walk up to pieces of jewelry and be like, I've never seen it in this resolution before. But the headset had fringe issues with like the controllers ate too many batteries, and like it wasn't a comfortable headset to use except maybe for sim purposes. So I decided not to pick that up or buy that headset. But like it was that punch through reality again where you're like, oh my God, I'm seeing something for the first time. And the problem is, I don't think I realized since I stepped away from my Rift S, I don't think I realized the effect that the compression was having on me across the cable, because I use the official link cable from Meta, and I have since the Oculus days, right? Like Quest 1, Quest 2, Quest 3, this whole time playing all kinds of games, sinking tons of hours into PCVR, namely Skyrim, but loads of other games as well, things like Subnautica. And now for the first time, I'm seeing it clear. Like it's really weird. My chat said to me, they're like, oh, it's clearer than my Quest 3. Someone said that, and I was like, bullshit, right? Like that was my first reaction. But then I got in the headset and I'm like, how is this a PSVR? This does not look like PSVR2. This looks like I look like I'm looking through like a pancake lens. Like what's going on? The only thing that really tells it different, Mura's still there, right? Like there's still Mura. Right. There is still Mura in like gray settings, but it's super faint. And so you get the color and you get the blacks and you get no compression. And it's so clear that it's like, I don't think I've even seen it that good on PSVR or on PS5. So that was my immediate reaction. It's really cool. I have to say props to Sony for even releasing this adapter, because that brings it to such a wider audience. And I don't mind having waited 5 months. And then they brought it back to me. You know, they didn't lock me out of the device. They didn't force me to buy an adapter. So I'm like, I wanted to say shaft Sony, but like, dude, you guys didn't do me dirty. You did a great job. And so if you have a 20 series graphics card or a card that has virtual link, don't pay for the adapter. Don't go worrying yourself over the fact that there's no stock right now, that it's very hard to get one. Just connect your what looks like USB-C cable to what looks like a USB-C cable at the back of your machine in your 20 series card. That's a virtual link port. And what it allows for is there's no encode and decode for the channel. And what it means is that you don't have compression in the middle and you get this beauty of performance. And I've been hearing so many good stories and reports back about people playing 120 hertz Beat Saber with that beautiful lighting stage and the fluidity and the lag-free gameplay. So those things are fantastic, but I still have one huge problem, guys. And I think this would be the same problem for anybody else who's like a content creator, is my headset connects to my machine, right? It connects to the PS5. I've Bluetooth connected my controllers to my PC. And right now, if I press the PlayStation button, it'll connect them to Steam VR, the PSVR2 app, just with a button push. Everything comes up. It's easy, one push, no problem, right? Right into PC gaming. The problem is, well, what happens when I want to go play on my PS5 again? I have to go and set it up, repair it to the other system, and I have to do this whole kind of like switch over, and then I'm gonna have to switch back and over and back, and it's like I just don't want to deal with all of that nonsense, right? If it could do both, and it was just like whatever, connected to machines have like a toggle switch or something, then that heartache would be gone. But as is, I'm probably gonna fall back to playing on my Quest 3 over link with compression. I am crying right now, like, to go back to that, but that just for ease of use, and that sucks. But the one thing it convinced me of is compression matters. And this reminds me of when I went from MP3 to like FLAC files and WAV files. Like, compression fucking matters, and the difference is like dead as night. It is obvious, and now I want it. And it's a shame, because I didn't used to love OLED, and now I love OLED, and now I know what that is, and I can't go back. And now I love no compression, and I can't go back. And that's my 2 cents on the adapter. Any questions? Any thoughts for yourselves?
I'm really tempted to give it a shot, but I've got like a 3070, so I don't think I will have as much luck as you. I might have to wait for the adapter, or pray that things
go to a
go
GameStop
right.
or something. Like don't
They have
wait
them
too
in
long.
person?
They have them in person, and you don't need to pre-order or whatever. A lot of stores still have them in stock. Now, Best Buys I've heard are kind of like out of stock, but GameStops apparently in the last few days have still had them. People are still finding them. So give that a shot, because I would say for your case, Adam, it's probably worth the cost of the adapter for how cool that experience is. The question is, right? Like, if you're going to pay in the end for a Bluetooth dongle and the adapter, like if you're going to pay $80, is that plus the faff of like pairing to your PC and then maybe coming off of it again? Is it worth it? Because you already have a daily driver.
That's what I was wondering.
PCVR stuff.
I've got my Quest, I've got PCVR dedicated headsets. So it would be more of a curiosity factor for me than putting myself in the shoes of somebody who maybe has, PSVR2 and no other headsets, and they want to try it on their PC and they've got a decent. So it's like could be potential tutorial opportunity, but yeah, I can't see this probably being like a regular use case for me. Yeah. But I love tinkering with stuff like that. So it's like, I just want to try it, see what it's like.
Well, if you want to try it, I was going to mention Virtual Link died, but DisplayPort technology lived on. And if you have a 30 or any higher end graphics card, as long as you have an Intel based motherboard or CPU, the GPU will render it through USB-C, which is the same thing as Virtual Link. It just depends on the motherboard. Then you'll need that adapter. But there's a lot of people are confused about that. So as long as you have a USB-C that's Intel based, I think AMD does it too. It'll say DisplayPort. That means that the GPU is doing the same thing as Virtual Link used to do. That's the reason the technology died. It wasn't just abandoned. There's other ways of getting to it.
I went plugging into I won't say every USB-C port because I've done that before with this headset, but like I took my, very slim XPS 13 from Dell, and I was like, well, I can drive 3 monitors off this. Surely there's enough power. And the acid test is very simple. When you plug the cable in, there's no light, there's no little highlight at the bottom of the PSVR headset because it's not getting enough power. And a lot of devices, Windows was usually smart enough to say, there's not enough power for this device, which was a little bit of a shame to me because for a second there I was like, oh, maybe I can use this as a display on my laptop. That'd be cool. But anyway, there you go. So that's the PSVR 2. So I suppose I would just say from what I've seen on Reddit, is a lot of people who are trying this for the first time are in one of two camps. There is definitely a tranche of people who think that the OLED and the lack of latency and the colors, i.e. the way it looks in the headset, how natural things look and how bright they are, along with the rumble in the controllers, is enough of a motivational package, even with the Mura as a takedown factor or the cost of the PC adapter, for that to become their daily driver. So that's pretty cool. As I was saying, my personal verdict on this, again, having slept on it a few nights and kind of gotten over the initial hype of, oh, hey, this works, and oh, hey, there's some things that I wasn't expecting, is that for me, it probably won't become a daily driver for PCVR, which I'm a little bit sad about, because some experiences just look amazing. Anything that's like Space Black or Air Car, for example, is a really simple, free Steam game where you're flying around this futuristic city, and the inky jet blacks and the rain on the glass, and it gives you that I'll call it a techno-lust lo-fi vibe, but in a small, tidy released package. Poking Blair there. But you can fly around that city. Things like Squadrons are meant to be really good. So for simmers, I think this is a pretty good opportunity. The thing is, you still have to get through the original setup, you still have to go down the whole Bluetooth route. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to connect the headset and I'm sorted. You still need to kind of handshake between the headset and its controllers and your PC. So don't think you can just throw the controllers out, unfortunately. Okay. But other than that, the software stack worked really well. It's just frustrating when you hit a panel of that and you can't progress. It feels like getting to a part in a Myst game where you're like, I'm just not smart enough. And so that was loads of fun. Yes, it does, Rowdy, for those of us normies. Oh God. So that's That's it. I loved someone online had mentioned a comparison to like the Infinity Stones. That PSVR2 now is like, well, they've got like Resident Evil 8, they've got Resident Evil 4, they've got GT7, they've got Horizon, they've got all these amazing games on console, and now they hook up to their PC and they can play Alex and Squadrons and like all these other games. It does feel like a big cheat. It takes a little bit of effort, but for some people, it's just plug and play. Like they do the adapter, they plug in the cables, and they're like, "Wow, this is incredible." So I hope it gets to a stable base. If it does, then on occasion, for the right titles, like Subside, I would 100% choose the PSVR 2 to look at Subside because I know that's going to look way better than it will in my Quest 3. And also, there's a little bit of performance boost as well because of what you're rendering at. And you can actually render kind of to higher settings and drive to the PSVR 2 as a result. So that's pretty cool. I'd say my average out position is looking at the prices of what a PSVR 2 bundle plus adapter would cost. And then on the other side, the Quest 3 plus like a head strap and maybe a couple of other accessories. Quest 3 still wins out for me as the headset that I would, say to any normal VR user, I'd be like, that's going to do better for you all around. But if you're a hardcore gamer and you happen to have a PC and you don't already have a PC VR headset, what a great offering. I'm so glad. I hope Sony wake the fuck up now and realize that they've got a cool headset marketed just not quite at the right price. And with this adapter, it's like the new modern like Odyssey or HP Reverb G2. It's such a cool headset for that. And so there you go. Orange blob and all. With that, let's move over to Gamescom, which is coming up later this month. And Gamescom usually kicks off with something called Opening Night Live. Our good old friend Jeff kicks that off. What is Gamescom? For those who don't know, it's a trade fair for video games. It's run since 2009, and it is the largest one in the world. It gets more than 300,000 visitors. And hence, do be warned, if you go to Germany, it's based in Cologne, Germany each year. This year, it's August 21st through 25th. You are inundated. I mean, everything is sold out. Like you're getting a hotel room, even just sleeping on someone's couch. There are bodies everywhere. And then they all come to one place and celebrate gaming. And this is not just VR, it's gaming right across the industry. You get huge gaming celebrities showcasing their games, massive announcements. And VR this year is going to have a mega booth. And that is branded the home of XR. I think I've said before how much I don't like the XR term, but I'll just echo that again here now. But it's like the fusion of several different development studios who are going to be kind of all in one place on the show floor and be able to show off their wares. Now, a lot of these studios have already shown their hand in earlier teaser trailers and that. So we're going to go through here today and over the kind of 10 or so developers, call out titles they've developed before, what we know is coming, and then any guesses for maybe what else is coming or what we're expecting from them at the show. First up, Vertigo Games. Last year, showed off Seventh Guest. I'm a huge fan. Adam, I think you're a fan of it too. It's a great, we'll call it room escape game in an eerie mansion. If you haven't tried it out, PSVR 2, stunning. You can play it on a few different platforms. They have Metro Awakening coming. So for those who are fans of the Metro series and want to be in this, I'll call it Slavic kind of frigid environment, it really looks like it's warming up quite nicely. So that's Metro Awakening from Vertigo Games. I'd expect more gameplay from them, maybe a demo on the show floor. And I would expect a launch of that game before the holidays kick in.
You how it's going to be because I'll be there actually, so I'm not going to be here next show.
I didn't know that. Okay, that's great.
Let's go.
Yeah. I have like 15 plus VR appointments. It's nuts. Like it's there's going to be so much VR there, and there's even like little companies that are now coming out that are like, hey, you want to try our thing? And I'm like, I'll try, but it's going to be big for VR, I think. And all the like the big players are there, so I'm excited. I'll tell you how it is. I'll try to if I'm not
managed to
passed
get a hotel,
out.
or are you just sleeping on the floor somewhere?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
No, I'm not. I know they have their like campground area, and I'm just like, that's probably why there's gonna be a bunch of smelly people there. Because where are they showering? You know, like so. You know, I have a proper booked early. Luckily through Live, they helped out with that. So
well, good on you. Oh, that's great. I'm glad we're gonna have a correspondent on the floor to be able to report back, because it's a lot, and that's a problem with these things. Is that you know, there's so much there. And this kind of conglomerate of different, you're gonna know these. And I was gonna ask you to guess, but if there's things you can't guess on, Adam, because I'm in that space for a couple of these myself, cool, right? Just don't answer. So Vertigo Games, right? We expect Metro Awakening from them. Vertigo usually have their fingers in multiple pies, so maybe Vertigo have other things as well. We'll see. I don't know of anything. And again, Jose, you always like talking about things that you're not able to talk about. You're exactly. Like, I don't know anything.
I am excited for Metro. It's one of those. I love the Metro franchise. It's one of those very few like scary franchises I love. I'm so terrified of this in VR. Yeah. Like I think it's going to be the one I officially pass on and watch somebody else play. Because man, I love that game.
This one, like I've played. What did I play? Metro 2033. It looks really good from the trailer, and that trailer was like a couple months old, so yeah, that's that one. All right, next up, End Dreams. I've been playing End Dreams games since the Assembly. Most people won't have even heard of that game. They did things like what was that, Shooty Fruity. They've done some really weird ones, really weird eclectic kind of mix of VR games. Ghostbusters being quite recent. Synapse, for example, was another one, and they've got Frenzies coming. Frenzies being this really frenetic multiplayer game. So that's coming. I'm looking forward to that. I like FPSs that are fast paced. Gives me Solaris vibes, so I'm hopeful that we get something quality out of End Dreams. And then Fast Travel Games, which last year had to showcase Vampire the Masquerade, which I found personally a little disappointing, but did put you in the seat of the whole Masquerade universe, which was really cool. I have no idea what they're going to come back with. A little bit like End Dreams, they're a little bit all over the place in terms of what they publish. So have no idea what's coming from them. Any guesses, team, as to what Fast Travel might be working on?
Very based something or other. Single player. Because they usually don't. Do they have any multiplayer titles?
I hope it's single player. Yeah, like I hope they stick to their guns. Yeah.
I don't remember if they've done any multiplayer. So my guess, I know it's super vague, but single player story based something.
No, I don't think
other.
so. I don't think they have. Someone's going to correct me there. But that'll be interesting. All right. Next up is Soul Assembly from the UK. They had done Drop Dead the Cabin, which is that cool kind of mixed reality home experience where zombies are busting down your walls in mixed reality. I have no idea what they're coming with, but we'll have to see what they're up to. Okay, and then Combat Waffle is probably the one I'm maybe most excited about, other than Metro Awakening. I'm showing my FPS roots here, I suppose, but they've got two projects they've been working on. So they're known for Ghost of Tabor, right, which is like Tarkov, but in VR. And then they've got Silent North coming, which is their, I'm going to call it soft DayZ clone, which I've been begging for years for something like this. I don't know that they're taking it the DayZ route, survival route that I would want. So I'm very apprehensive about it, if they're going to feck it up or not. But Silent North is one there. That's got a trailer. And then Grim VR is another one that they're working on as well, which I know a little bit less about. So those two projects, I'm hoping we're going to hear from Combat Waffle, something grounded, maybe get a trailer, and then some showroom floor impressions. So
Silent North?
Which, for Silent North, it's got kind of cartoony in the That's quite an early trailer.
I can count the polygons in the images.
Well, that's probably the most. I was thinking the same thing. My brain was like, that's probably the most the Quest 3 can probably push, like for open giant map. That's.
And again, some developers are still targeting Quest 2. We have to remember, right? Like they still don't want the big base of the pyramid. Now Quest 1's on the death wagon. Unfortunately, it got shipped out with the bubonic plague about a year ago. But still, Quest 2 is a target for a lot. And speaking of Quest 2, Patient 8 Games, which is not a dev studio that I'd ever heard of before, were fabricated, I believe, after the creation of the mod Return to Rapture. And since we lost Nathan from the show, we don't really have a representative for the whole BioShock universe anymore. But it was a BioShock mod, and it was really touted as quite impressive and something that the actual devs should have taken on and brought BioShock into VR. But they're heading towards a horror game called Memoriam. But again, I picked out of that lineup that like they're targeting 72 frames a second, Quest 2. And I'm like, uh-oh, that sounds pretty limiting. Like your hands are pretty tied at that, but interested to see another horror game in VR and what maybe that will be. So looking to learn more about that. And then going to something a little bit happier, we've got Beyond Frames, a development studio behind Down the Rabbit Hole, which brought us this kind of diorama style Alice in Wonderland trip that we had before. And I don't know if it's a spiritual successor or an actual successor. Another component of that series now to Down the Rabbit Hole is Escaping Wonderland. And Escaping Wonderland looks like a student diorama. You know, if you had to make in a shoebox a little scene or whatever, and you're like peering at it. And so it's one of those very similar to third-person VR games where very interesting for the VR player to experience and see it. But for somebody who puts on a show or tries to make a video, like that stuff usually doesn't look very good in flattened. But to a VR player, it's really kind of like a neat, cute little way to experience a kind of theater in VR. So look out for Escaping Wonderland as well. Now, the final one in my list here, which is interesting, and this is where I want you all to put your thinking hats on. This is the wish list time. Flat to VR Studios have gotten their first licensed VR conversion, and we don't know what it is. And apparently that's coming. So, I have a few titles that I'm thinking of, but I haven't been able to settle on one that I think it is. What do you want from Flat brought to VR that hasn't been yet? Because I don't think it's going to be a project they've already dipped their toes into that we already know about. And I also don't think it's going to be like a AAA, like a, hey, guess what, Meta, we're going to go do the GTA, even if you're not willing to do it or whatever. I don't think it's going to be that far reaching. Like we've already seen, mods for things like Cyberpunk 2077, but like, where do you think they're going? What title do you think they're going to get licensed to bring to VR? Really curious. Have a guess.
I can't think of a specific title, but I would picture something along the like Doom level, like where I know Doom VR has already been out, or it's kind of, but like that level of like kind of an older game that's being VRified,
like Doom Eternal, for example.
Yeah,
because that's a couple years old, but hasn't been VRified as far as I know.
Or something on the same shelf of that timeline. Like I don't think they're doing any within the past 4 or 5 year releases. I think it's going to be like a 5-year older game, but remade for VR.
Right. So like I imagine that the conversation goes like this, right? Like you've got a dev studio, they put out a game, it was kind of a hit, probably not like top 10, but like kind of a hit. And then we're tapping on their door, we being Flat to VR Studios, tapping on their door and saying, hey, we can convert your game to VR. You want to sign us on to do it? It'll cost this much or whatever. Let us do it. Trust us. That's why I don't think it's a Rockstar title. Like I don't think it's a, killer, but I think you're right, Adam, in terms of the time period. It's sometime between like 2015 to 2020, maybe. Something like that.
I did see
some kind of shootery thing.
Shootery.
Like they posted a teaser. I think it was like maybe 3 weeks ago. Like they posted a source code, and it was something like about remove ladder, like something that you can remove a ladder. And when I saw that, I was like, what game allows you to remove ladders? And my brain immediately went to The Sims. So it kind of aligns.
Shit. That would kill.
That kind of aligns with what Adam said. But also my wish.
Wow.
Like what I would actually want. I would love for Valve to acknowledge what UEVR is doing and give them access to their old franchises. I would love
Half-Life?
I would love to see Half-Life, Half-Life 2, and also I would love to see the UEVR injector, which is an amazing piece of software. But I would love that to become an API for games. I wish they could hide all that. Right? We talked about friction accessibility. I wish that you just press a button in the game, and if you have a headset, it just jumps to VR. That way you don't have to click or customize anything. But that will be my wish. I would love to revisit older games like Adam mentioned.
You've got my brain going. Even like official Counter-Strike, official Day of Defeat. Like I'd love that stuff to come over. Actually,
man.
so the guess that I had, I'll hold. Rowdy, do you have any guesses from or wishes?
Not in particular. Like I've not a real guess that I think makes a lot of sense. Like I'm just gonna wait it out.
I was struggling, so I'll give you the ones that I jotted down anyway, and why I nixed them because that's pretty much all I've got is a list of things that have been nixed. So part of my heart was like, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. I would love it if they like got the rights to be able to do that, but I think it's Microsoft, and I think they would have said no if we were going to do it. We'd do it ourselves. I think Ninja Theory, having been bought by Microsoft, that's probably a no. Far Cry is kind of too obvious. They've done a few in those conversions, I believe. You think you can play Far Cry in VR through their mods. GTA 5 again, too big. Minecraft, too big. Sea of Thieves was like maybe because we don't have anything like that in VR, and it's about the right era. So perhaps, but the gameplay style there is a little bit too flat. I think the conversion would be very heavyweight for them to actually achieve that. Then there's the concept of like Elden Ring, which already has had VR conversion, and I'll say, not that it didn't work well, but like that format actually is better as a third-person game. The one that I really want it to be, right? There's two that I really want it to be. One's an old school one, and one's a modern one. The old school one is Bad Company 2. I want Battlefield Bad Company 2 to be full fat converted VR. I want to bust through walls, in multiplayer, fly a helicopter, crash it into a chopper, see mines detonate, like the whole shebang. Bad Company 2 with the Vietnam mod also supported, flying in a chopper with that Vietnam music going, like, fucking, yes, please, please, please.
Man, now I'm angry. You just made me very excited and very angry this doesn't exist. I love that company.
I don't know. EA, like, I think that one might fringe on the, like, if we're going to do it, like, if they're going to allow Battlefield to go down that route, it's probably going to be an official thing and not, again, they're going to hold it close to their chest, I feel. The other guess that I had, which is more recent, and I think would really help, is Helldivers 2. I think Helldivers 2 should have official VR support, and I think that would be fucking awesome.
That'd be cool, but I feel like that's a high wish list item.
It's a very high wish. It's too recent is the problem. It's too recent, right? That team is too busy already.
Soon, no.
So, yeah, sad. I don't know what they're gonna bring, but Sims is a pretty cool guess. I like that one. That was.
If they did Helldivers in VR, would you actually have some sort of a HUD if it was meant for VR, so you could actually find the people that are down without having to actually have us yell at you and see it? just asking out of curiosity.
It's still
just out of curiosity.
Feel it.
Rowdy, can you answer that for me? Did you have an idea what my answer might be?
Answer that. The answer is no.
For the immersion.
Honestly, when I think about it too, there's not really good, like, there is a few like tech demos, I would call them, or really good experiences, but there isn't like a really full-blown like racing game in VR.
Yeah.
Like other than GT, but I'm talking about like a multi-platform game would be pretty awesome too. Like I would love to see like Need for Speed or Midnight Club. One of these games with like a killer soundtrack, like that's also something that VR is missing. Like I want, like actually a lot of people talk about AAA and it's always for VR, it's always graphics related. I want something with good soundtracks other than Beat Saber. Like I want
a non-rhythm game with good sound. Yeah, that's true.
Give me Tony Hawk.
Oh, dude,
the soundtrack,
man.
like
that'd be a good one. That could be possible.
I would love a Tony Hawk actually, because the thing is, like, once you've played third-person perspective games in VR, you're like, this is cool. Like, again, it's rubbish for an audience. Someone looking at it in flat is no good, but actually playing it is super fun. And sometimes that stereo depth really adds to something, like landing a wheelie or whatever.
Yeah, I always compared it to playing with like Legos or toys and like seeing because you're playing and you're looking at them down. Like Tony Hawk in VR, it's still like one of those experiences that like always just warps my brain because it really feels like you're playing with a toy and you're like seeing the skateboarder from a top view perspective. That would be like
exactly game. And well, the same thing goes for your Sims recommendation, but Lego Bricktales, for anyone who hasn't played Lego Bricktales, who just got a Quest 3, it's got an MR mode, it's got a just standard VR mode. Both of them are amazing. The story will take you 10 hours or so. Go play that on my order, thank you. That's a fantastic game. Fantastic. So much fun. The other one that's on the show floor that I saw was Archaect, and they haven't done anything like phenomenal for a while. Their last one I think was Freediver, which was again a kind of like a Subside, like very visual, decent looking game, but was quite short. So I've seen them kind of come short a few times in their offering. So I don't know if Archaect have anything on the show floor, or they're just kind of going to be there, so to speak. But shout out to the Canadians. And then the other thing that I was going to say, just to kind of wind this one up about Gamescom and the software side, was we've got the VR Games Showcase, which we saw Jamie Feltham kind of appeared on their announcement trailer for this. That's happening on August 15th. And I think what's going to happen is this. I think they're going to play it safe, given it's their first kind of inaugural showcase that way. And I think it's intelligently timed because they're basically showing themselves as basically a VR-centric announcements bucket. And I suspect that a lot of studios will get their game announced through this spilling of the beans in the VR Games Showcase. And then they'll be like, oh, and guess what? Next week, come play it at Gamescom. That's what I think is happening. And I think they're planning to set this up so that in every future year, they just become the trailer dumping ground.
Right.
So I don't think we're going to see much new or like, I think there's going to be a lot of overlap, to say that in another way, between the VR Games Showcase and Gamescom. That's my expectation.
I love that.
So cool. Tune into that on August 15th. The only thing that I have to say about hardware is, just like E3, just like other, conventions, I oftentimes, the hardware that shows up is like out of the blue. You have no idea what's going to show up. The only thing that I was like wishing for, until I read that Sony isn't showing up and have decided for the 5th year in a row to not go to Gamescom, was PS5 Pro. Because the PSVR2 lover in me really wants to be able to move from, 60 hertz reprojection to 120 to like a full 90 in that headset. And I'm hopeful that a PS5 Pro could achieve that. And it's about time that Sony show their hand, like in the next year. Give us a
Pro. Know what's really funny? So I actually bought it's like, you can actually see it somewhere down behind me, but I actually bought the new PS5 model, the Slim.
Oh, the Slim.
Yes. The Slim, they didn't boast about it, but the Slim does have an upgraded GPU and actually does 120 hertz variable refresh rate up to 8K resolution. That was something that I didn't know about, but they did answer that. So the Slim is actually a higher bump up in graphics. Yeah, it's something that blew my mind. I connected it to I was actually going to use it on my TV to test the PSVR stuff, but I ended up moving it to my actual monitor because of the variable refresh rate, which is pretty cool. So they do up to 240 hertz now, I believe.
Holy cow. Wow. Yeah, things look stunning off of that. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I just wanted to say it in passing. And no spoilers for me, please, because I'm way late coming to this. But I just started playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the first time ever. So
I'm also slow, so we're in the same camp. I need to get
I'm 5% into the game.
We need to talk about this more. But
I know.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, Rowdy. Let's spoil them.
So as I get through that, then it sounds like Adam and I were on a homework journey to go and play that game. But a friend of mine who's a VR dev had said that it's his favorite game of all time, and that the immersive side of that story in the game is just like, it's like the best story game that he's ever played. Without any spoilers or anything, what are your thoughts on Red Dead Redemption 2, Rowdy and Jose?
I mean, like for me, the best story-driven game, but that's because I really like the genre, is The Witcher 3. I think that's for me, like, but it like, to be fair, it isn't as good as Red Dead Redemption 2. The story in Red Dead Redemption 2 is amazing. It's like a movie, and it's like the world that you play in. I mean, if you're only 5% in, or like, I don't know what you exactly said.
Just after the snow.
You're nowhere there yet. Like that game still needs to start, even, like, because the snow is just that's tutorial. It's like a 4-hour tutorial or something, a 2-hour tutorial. But no, like you're part of a world that you feel like if you're not there, that thing just continues. That is what they do really well. Like the wildlife, the stories that you run into. Like you're gonna, especially you're gonna probably, it's gonna take like 80 hours before you're gonna start the main quest.
Honestly, it was that much for me too.
The world looks gorgeous. I'm quite late coming to this. I don't know what year it came out. Maybe before 2020, right?
It was pre-pandemic. I know that much.
Yeah. So anyway, like I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, God, even the snow, the animals, like everything looks really solid. And then when I realized it had the kind of GTA style map where you can pull back and you're like, oh God, there's a lot here. Like, and I'm starting to feel that whole like Skyrim feeling where you're like,
slightly
I'm going to know this map.
Excited.
Have you played the first one?
Yeah.
The original Red Dead?
I did not. No.
Oh, okay. See, I would say you don't need to, but no, it's not mandatory. But
because what I'm thinking is
Red Dead Redemption 1 made me cry. Like
I'll play 2 and then I'll go back to 1. It's kind of like what I did with like Steam World.
It's gonna make a lot more
like you play the second.
That's,
you know what I mean?
That's odd. I feel like
I don't think
at
so.
that point I wouldn't play 1 if you never played 1, because I feel like 1 it's like playing Grand Theft Auto like San Andreas after playing like 5. You know what I mean? Like it is kind of fun, but there's so much missing there that you almost don't get the full flavor of the game really.
But
it's a product of its time.
Like Red Dead Redemption 2 is a prequel to Red Dead Redemption 1.
So that's why I'm mentioning. So Red Dead Redemption 1, like the actual story, the character that the main character of the 2 shows up in 1.
Yeah.
But because it's a prequel, and the thing is that number 1, the first game's story so deeply great. Like honestly, when it comes to games that made me cry, I would say that one actually got me like sobbing. Like I think about the ending of that game and I still cry because it's that good. And then on the sequel, you see the main character from 1 younger, and some stuff in 1 happened that you're kind of always like anticipating that to happen. So it's one of those things that it's kind of like a extra flavor if you play 2.
But RD2 has maybe by the time I get to it, it'll be. It's a very emotional story in RD2, I think.
Yeah. Two was sad, but nah, man. Like the ending of 1 like completely overshadows 2's end. If 2's ending, I'm sure people who have played both games will agree with me. Like,
I don't. Man. I
wanted to fight on that, Rowdy.
Okay, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this.
On the ring on that.
No longer brothers.
Adam and I got to catch up, right? So
me and Rowdy were brothers at the first with Linux, and then the rift happened with Red Dead Redemption. See, we can have a successful marriage here.
That's right. So that was it. That was my quick mention. But is there anything else hardware-wise that you have a guess for this one? I'm going to point this one at Adam because you're going to Gamescom. So what do you think is going to be on the floor? Another shaky vest suit that's going to zap you like the OO last year, or like what's going to be there?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I've never been to a Gamescom to know if they actually focus on hardware a lot too, or peripherals. Because like I've mostly going into it anticipating the games, so I don't think we're gonna see a lot of physical stuff really. I have low hopes for that, but again,
homie, you're going to Germany. They're the kings of Sims. You're going to see hardware.
I was going to say, surely there's
every single hardcore person that does like the truck sim rigs and all that stuff. Okay. Well, they all are German. I just got to say.
We're talking about rigs, but I guess I was thinking of like maybe bigger. To me, like I don't care for Sims that much, so like simulator rigs are kind of like but I don't know. I can't imagine anything else. But I'll if I'm wrong, I will happily report back. How's about that?
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. I think I remember the last time it was CES or something. You like reported back on it was like a dodgy hotel room Mr. Handy demo or something. It was
not in a hotel room. That was in a public place. How dare you?
I imagine these things. So, I've seen plenty of dodgy hotel room demo myself. Yes, not a Mr. Handy though. All right. So, Hurricane Jose, you're up next, my blustery chum. What have the world of VR games got in store for us?
All right. So, since we know that a lot of upcoming announcements are coming for VR games, not a lot this week, but I do have some re-releases. So, definitely want to mention those for you guys. First one I have is Compound, is releasing on PSVR2 on August 13. Compound, very well-known roguelike shooter, very Wolfenstein, Doom, old school, but with updated graphics. one of my favorite games, I must admit. It's one of those games that I really care more about the gameplay than graphics, and it's really If you like Wolfenstein, this game is pretty dope. Old school Wolfenstein, rather.
I liked it. I liked it when I played it, and maybe Adam got it right. Maybe it's Wolfenstein that they had decided to bring back. Flat to VR.
That would be.
I wouldn't be
I'd
surprised.
be happy to kick some Nazis. It's fine. Yeah,
I'm down.
I could do it.
But yeah, that releases on the 13th. No price available yet. It is a PSVR2 game, so it'll probably be following the same PSVR2 price range. Yep.
That's gonna be great in that headset.
In OLED, yeah.
Just the smooth nature of it. It'll just run to frame rate and it'll be great. Yeah, that's cool.
And yeah, so that's Compound. Up next, one of my favorite games. I love the dev. Personal Sushi Ben, finally releasing on Pico on August 22nd. Already available on Quest, PSVR 2. I think Viveport has it also, and wishlist on Steam. Similar to Compound, no price announced just yet, but it's going to be a similar price range to the Quest port.
What do you do in Sushi Ben? Do you actually just make sushi, or is it more like a story? I don't know.
It's a genre. It's a slice of. It's a Japanese genre called slice of life gameplay. It's Animal Crossing like, where you do a lot of multiple, I guess, mini games to continue the story where you are a sushi maker.
You're playing a manga pretty much. It's very, but he does such a good job with making the town just so charming and feel like a real town. Like you do get really attached to the characters, and the tasks are silly. Like it's very slice of life. Like I thought it was super cute. I liked it a lot.
As long as it's not as hardcore as like Tokyo Chronos, then I'm in. I can digest that.
No hardcoreness. No, it's very like anyone. Okay. I'm stupid and I could play this just fine.
And if you love stories too, right? Like that's what it's all about. It's a slice of life. You want to fall in love with the characters, and it's written by the guys who, if you guys ever heard of Hatofu Boyfriend, which is yeah. So it's
and the Christmas
written by
one.
the same people.
Wait, that's not in VR, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
I mean,
I guess I don't know what engine. It's probably
actually I changed my want. I want UEVR to bring Hatofu Boyfriend to VR.
I want to date pigeons in VR.
Yes.
Screw Red.
I changed my answer.
Wait. Is this pigeon on pigeon dating, or is this human on pigeon dating?
It's whatever you want it to be.
Well, I assume you're a human in it, right? And you're dating.
You're human.
Yeah. And you're dating birds?
Yeah.
That is such a. Okay, Japanese are just.
Well, funny enough,
so normal.
I forgot the name, and I wish I would have brought this up earlier. But there is actually a game, and now I gotta bring it up because this will be fun discussion real quick. It's a VR. It's not VR, but it's a dating game that it's going to be at Gamescom. So Adam, you should probably go check this out.
Yes.
It's a dating game where you can date anything in the household.
I've seen that one. Yeah, like appliances. Like there's a fridge, but they turn them into like a humanized version of the appliance. Like
this sounds like Pee-wee's World or whatever. Like
it's exactly that, but you can date them.
Furniture.
Really?
Yeah. So I just sent Rowdy the link in the group chat.
You both are really weird. I'm just gonna say that.
I mean, have you met a VR person that isn't weird?
No, frankly not.
But yeah, the game's called Date Everything. So
they said VR person, Rowdy.
Okay.
So that became a last submission here for releases.
Not
right.
Maybe one day.
What's the name of the couch shagger one? What's that?
Well, I don't know.
Date Everything.
The Date Everything.
So this is it's called Date Everything. Welcome to
great.
Date Everything, a cheeky, wildly interactive new dating sim from familiar voice actors turned developers. It's a sandbox dating simulator where you can comfort of your own house, I guess.
Do come true.
Yeah. So.
That's so bonkers.
Yeah,
that's how it works. Okay, you wear glasses, and that's why your stuff become people, sort of.
I just want to say, before VR came about, before AR and before AI, people were marrying planes. Getting wed to sea turtles. Like, our future does not look bright right now to me. Like, this is gonna be, where are we going?
If you get more emotional, what if you get more emotional fulfillment from your fridge than any other person? Like I've seen some fridges with like the auto water dispenser that I'm just saying.
They get you going.
I don't judge.
Dispenser, real nice.
And I thought VR chat was bad. Right. Okay. Good.
Sushi Man.
I need to get out of here. This is all right. Thank you very much, Jose. You want to give us a recap? Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Compound releasing August 13th. Releasing on Pico. We also have Sushi Band releasing on Pico August 22nd. And Out of Hand that I was going to mention last, that releases on August 15th. No price released yet, but it's already available on Quest 2. So play some VR games, people. Lots of VR.
Out of hand.
And they will. Thank you, Reverend Jose. And with that, I want to remind everybody this podcast is live in front of a beautiful, gorgeous global audience every 2 weeks. Every other Saturday on both YouTube and Twitch. Timestamps after the show. Audio version, which goes up on iTunes, Spotify, on SoundCloud on a mystery day of the week. And I want to thank you all for your attention and your ideas and thoughts there in chat. Much appreciated. If anyone's going to hunt down the infamous German Rifter, please do in Germany. What a great lad. Over so many years. Thanks, GR. Adam, bring us back some successful news stories and good luck over there in Germany. Don't eat too much Wiener Schnitzel or whatever's out there. So,
Danke.
And we'll see you on the next FReality podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.